Welcome to another exciting episode on Ben 10 What If. Today, we're exploring a captivating tale called What If Ben 10 Had No Time Limit on Transformations. Before we begin, if you enjoy our content, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And now, the story awaits. Chapter 1, Unbound. The desert sun beat down as Ben Tennyson ducked behind a jagged boulder, dust swirling around his sneakers. Sweat trickled down his forehead while he caught his breath, the familiar green glow of the Omnitrix casting shadows across his face. 3 minutes left, Ben muttered, glancing at the hourglass symbol. Never enough time when you need it. A massive shadow passed overhead. The winged creature circled back, its leathery wingspan blocking out the sun. Its razor-sharp talons gleamed as it dove toward Ben's hiding spot. Ben slammed his palm on the Omnitrix. Come on, Jet Ray. Green light enveloped him as his body morphed into the aerodynamic alien. Red skin stretched across his transforming frame, membrane-like wings sprouted from his arms, and his face elongated into Jet Ray's distinctive shape. He launched skyward just as the creature's talons shattered the boulder he'd been using for cover. Too slow, ugly. Jet Ray called, his voice high and nasal as he barrel-rolled through the air. Let's see if you can keep up with this. The neuroshock blasts from his eyes and tail struck the creature's wings, but it barely flinched. The beast, some kind of mutated pterodactyl, screeched and changed course, pursuing him with surprising agility. Ben. Gwen's voice crackled through the Omnitrix's communication function. Dr. Onimo's controlling it from the canyon ridge. Kevin and I are trying to reach him, but there's too many of these things. On it. Jet Ray banked hard, spotting the mad scientist's distinctive silhouette against the horizon. Dar. Onimo stood beside some kind of control station, his ridiculous mind control helmet glinting in the sunlight. Jet Ray pushed his speed to the limit, weaving between rock formations as the pterodactyl stayed on his tail. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began to flash and beep, the universal sign that time was running out. Not now. He dove sharply, trying to shake his pursuer. Just need another minute. The beeping accelerated. Jet Ray risked a glance back and saw the creature gaining on him, jaws open wide. He fired another neuroshock blast, hitting it directly in the face. The creature faltered just long enough for him to put some distance between them. Approaching Onimo's position, Jet Ray spotted Gwen throwing up mana shields against 2 more mutated creatures while Kevin, absorbed in metal from a nearby mining cart, grappled with what looked like a saber-toothed tiger with scorpion pincers. The Omnitrix gave its final warning beep just as Jet Ray lined up his approach to Onimo. Oh, come on, green light flashed, and Ben found himself tumbling through the air as a human again. The ground rushed up to meet him. Ben! Gwen screamed, trying to create a mana platform beneath him, but one of the creatures knocked her aside. Ben twisted mid-fall, reaching desperately for the Omnitrix. Work, you stupid watch. The dial remained red and unresponsive, recharging mode. Suddenly, a silver blur shot through the air. Kevin caught Ben roughly by the ankle, his metal-covered arm extended. Watch where you're falling, Tennyson. Kevin grunted, swinging Ben toward a ledge. Some of us are trying to fight here. Ben landed in a tumble, scraping his palms on the rough stone. Thanks for the graceful save, he muttered, getting to his feet. He glared at the Omnitrix. Come on, recharge already. Ben Tennyson. Dr. Onimo's voice boomed across the canyon. Your time is running out, quite literally. My creations will tear you apart the moment you return to your pathetic human form. Ben ducked as the pterodactyl swooped overhead. Little late on that one, Onimo. He scrambled along the ledge, searching for cover while the Omnitrix recharged. The narrow path led toward what looked like a cave entrance partially hidden by fallen rocks. With no better options available, Ben sprinted toward it. The mutated pterodactyl screeched, diving after him. Its talons scraped the stone just inches behind his heels. Any time now would be great. Ben shouted at the Omnitrix, which continued to glow stubbornly red. He dove through the cave entrance as the creature crashed into the rocks outside, too large to follow. Inside, darkness enveloped him, broken only by shafts of sunlight filtering through cracks in the ceiling. Ben caught his breath, leaning against the cool stone wall. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he realized he wasn't in a natural cave. The walls were smooth in places, with strange markings that reminded him of the symbols on Azimuth's technology. "Whoa," he whispered, running his fingers over the etched surface. "This looks Galvan." The cave extended deeper, the passageway sloping downward. With the pterodactyl still screeching outside and the Omnitrix still recharging, Ben decided to explore further. "Gwen," he whispered into the Omnitrix communicator. "I'm inside some kind of Galvan structure. The pterodactyl can't follow me in. How are you guys holding up?" Static answered him. "Great. No signal." Ben continued down the passageway, using his phone's flashlight to navigate. The tunnel opened into a chamber with a high ceiling. Unlike the rough-hewn entrance, this room was clearly constructed, a perfect circle with a raised platform in the center. On the platform sat a small device, similar in design to the Omnitrix but more angular, with crystalline components that caught the light from Ben's phone and reflected it in dazzling patterns across the walls. "What is this place?" Ben approached cautiously, years of experience having taught him that mysterious alien tech usually meant trouble. He checked the Omnitrix, still red. With a shrug, he stepped onto the platform for a closer look at the device. The moment his foot touched the platform, the chamber came alive with green light. Symbols along the walls illuminated, casting the room in an eerie glow that reminded Ben of the Omnitrix's activation sequence. "Okay, maybe I should wait for Gwen." Before he could finish his sentence, the device on the platform shot a beam of energy directly at the Omnitrix. Ben instinctively raised his arm to shield his face, but the beam connected with the watch. Instead of pain, he felt a strange vibration as the Omnitrix absorbed the energy, its faceplate shifting from red to green almost instantly. "That's new," Ben muttered, examining the watch. The Omnitrix suddenly spoke in Azimuth's voice, "Legacy protocol accepted. Integration in progress. Removing safeguard limitations." "Removing what now?" Ben tapped the watch. "Hello? Azimuth? What's happening?" The device on the platform dimmed, its energy apparently spent. The Omnitrix, however, glowed brighter than ever, the green light pulsing steadily. "Integration complete," the watch announced. "Time limitation safeguards disabled. Full transformation access granted." Ben's eyes widened. "Wait, does that mean?" A crash from outside interrupted his thoughts. The pterodactyl had apparently found a way to start breaking through the entrance. Perfect timing, Ben grinned, activating the Omnitrix. The holographic display showed Humungosaur's silhouette. "Let's test this out." He slammed down the core, green light washing over him as his body grew and transformed into the massive dinosaur-like alien. The cave ceiling cracked as Humungosaur's head nearly touched it. "Oh yeah." Ben's deeper voice rumbled through the chamber. "Time to show Onimo what happens when you mess with." He paused, waiting for the familiar beeping that would signal his transformation time running out. Nothing happened. "Huh. Maybe it just starts the timer from when I leave the chamber." He shrugged his massive shoulders and charged toward the entrance, smashing through the partially collapsed rocks with ease. The pterodactyl screeched in surprise as Humungosaur emerged from the cave, sunlight glinting off his scaly hide. Without hesitation, Ben grabbed the creature's leg as it tried to fly away. "Going somewhere?" he growled, yanking it down and slamming it into the ground. The impact sent tremors through the canyon floor. "Ben!" Gwen called, spotting him from where she battled another creature. "What took you so long?" "Found something cool." Ben shouted back, growing even larger as he used Humungosaur's size-increasing ability. He swatted away the dazed pterodactyl and charged toward Dr. Onimo's position. "Really cool. Kevin had nearly reached Onimo but was being held at bay by what looked like a hybrid between a gorilla and a rattlesnake. "Little help here," he grunted, narrowly avoiding the creature's venomous fangs. Humongosaur leapt into the air, coming down with an earth-shaking stomp that knocked both Kevin and the creature off balance. "Sorry," he called, catching Kevin before he fell. "Watch it, Tennyson." Kevin snapped, then paused. "Wait, shouldn't you have timed out by now?" Ben grinned, or at least, Humongosaur's version of a grin. "That's the cool part." He set Kevin down and turned to face Onimo. "I'll explain later." Dr. Onimo frantically adjusted dials on his control console. "No matter. My creations will adapt to any of your alien forms, Ben Tennyson. I've studied them all extensively. Maybe you should update your research." Ben charged forward, easily batting aside the rattlesnake-gorilla hybrid. He reached for Onimo, who ducked behind his console and pressed a large red button. All around the canyon, the mutated creatures suddenly turned and converged on Humongosaur, their movements synchronized. The pterodactyl dive-bombed him while the saber-toothed scorpion latched onto his leg. 3 more creatures emerged from behind rock formations, all bizarre combinations of prehistoric animals and modern predators. "They're targeting Humongosaur specifically," Gwen called, throwing mana discs to distract the creatures. "Then let's change it up." Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming in a flash of green light. Where Humongosaur had stood, XLR-8 now balanced on his ball-like feet, visor down and ready for action. "Can't hit what you can't catch," XLR-8 taunted, zipping away in a blur of blue and black. He circled the creatures at incredible speed, creating a whirlwind that lifted several of them off their feet. Onimo laughed maniacally. Predictable as always. He twisted another dial on his console. The creature's eyes glowed red, and they began tracking XLR-8's movements with unnatural precision. The saber-toothed scorpion shot a web-like substance across XLR-8's path, catching his foot and sending him tumbling. "They've adapted to XLR-8 too," Kevin shouted, running toward Onimo's position. Ben pulled free from the sticky substance and touched the Omnitrix again. This time, Diamond Head's crystalline form emerged from the green light. "Let's see how they handle this." He fired crystal shards at the approaching creatures, pinning several to the canyon walls. The pterodactyl swooped down, its beak now glowing with heat as it pecked at Diamond Head's shoulder, actually cracking the crystal surface. "Okay, that's not supposed to happen," Ben muttered, forming his arm into a shield to block the next attack. "Ben!" Gwen called, pointing at Onimo. "Look at his console. It's analyzing each transformation and adapting his creatures instantly." Sure enough, the console was projecting a scanning beam across the battlefield, gathering data each time Ben transformed. Onimo cackled with delight as his creatures continued their assault. "He's collecting transformation data," Kevin shouted, now just yards from Onimo but held back by 2 creatures. Ben fired crystal projectiles toward the console, but the pterodactyl intercepted them midair. "We need to destroy that thing," he shouted. What happened next surprised even him. Without thinking, Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol again, expecting the familiar recharge delay between quick transformations. Instead, green light flashed immediately, and he felt his body shift into Heat Blast's fiery form. "No timeout?" Heat Blast looked at his flaming hands in surprise. "No recharge?" "Impossible." Dr. Onimo's triumphant expression faltered. "The Omnitrix requires a recalibration period between transformations." Ben grinned, flames dancing across his face. "Not anymore." He launched a massive fireball at Onimo's console, but the pterodactyl once again intercepted it, its body now covered in flame-resistant scales. "Two can adapt." Ben touched the Omnitrix again, transforming instantly into Big Chill. The moth-like alien's frosty breath froze the pterodactyl mid-air, sending it crashing to the ground in a block of ice. Without pausing, Ben shifted again, this time to Cannonbolt. He curled into a ball and launched himself directly at Anamo's position, bowling through the remaining creatures. No. Stay back. Anemo frantically pressed buttons on his console. Cannonbolt uncurled at the last moment, reaching for the console, but Anemo yanked something from it, a small data drive, and pressed a separate button on his wrist device. A swirling portal opened behind him. You may have surprised me today, Ben Tennyson, Anemo sneered, backing toward the portal, but I've collected enough data on your transformations to create the perfect predator for each one. He held up the data drive triumphantly. Next time, your little watch won't save you. There won't be a next time. Ben transformed again, this time into Jet Ray, and fired neuroshock blasts at the mad scientist. Anemo dodged into the portal, which snapped shut behind him just as the blasts reached his position. No. Ben transformed back to human, surprising himself with how easily he did so. The canyon fell silent as Anemo's creatures, without their master's control, collapsed to the ground, inert. Kevin and Gwen approached, both looking worse for wear but unharmed. What was that? Gwen demanded, gesturing at the Omnitrix. You transformed at least 5 times in under a minute. Ben looked down at the watch, which glowed a steady green. I found something in that cave, some kind of Galvan tech. It did something to the Omnitrix, removed the safeguard limitations is what it said. Kevin crossed his arms. In English? No time limit, Ben grinned, activating the Omnitrix and cycling through alien holograms. And no recharge time between transformations. I can switch instantly or stay transformed as long as I want. That's potentially dangerous, Gwen said, eyebrows knitted in concern. Or potentially awesome. Ben countered. Imagine what I could do now. No more timing out in the middle of a fight, no more waiting for a recharge when I need to switch aliens. Does Azimuth know about this? Kevin asked, kicking one of the fallen creatures with his boot. Because he strikes me as the type who puts safeguards in for a reason. Ben shrugged. The tech in the cave seemed Galvan, so maybe it was his. Some kind of upgrade protocol. Or something experimental he abandoned for good reason, Gwen muttered. Look, Ben said, all I know is that Anemo got away with data on my transformations, and he's planning something bigger. With the Omnitrix working like this, I'll be ready for whatever he throws at me next. Kevin grinned. Not to mention all the other stuff you can do. Imagine staying Jet Ray long enough to fly to Japan for authentic ramen, then switching to Humongosaur to scare the tourists. Kevin. Gwen elbowed him, but Ben was already nodding enthusiastically. Actually, that's not a bad idea, minus the scaring tourists part. Let's head back to Bellwood and figure out exactly what this upgrade can do. 3 days later, Ben streaked across the Bellwood skyline as XLR-8, a blue blur against the morning clouds. He'd been in this form since yesterday afternoon, and the freedom was intoxicating. No timer. No beeping warning. No sudden transformation back to human at the worst possible moment. XLR-8 skidded to a halt atop the water tower, surveying the city below. In the past 3 days, he'd stopped 4 robberies, rescued a family from a house fire, and intercepted a Tekadon robot before it could even begin its rampage, all without once timing out. This is the life, he said to himself, stretching his limbs. XLR-8's body felt more natural to him now, after nearly 20 hours continuous use. The incredible speed, the heightened reflexes, they were becoming second nature. His plumber's badge buzzed. Gwen's voice came through. Ben, where are you? School started an hour ago. XLR-8 winced. Right, school. Almost forgot that was a thing. Are you still XLR-8? You've been in that form since yesterday. Why change what works? Ben replied, leaping from the water tower and racing down the side of the support column. I can be at school in 30 seconds. That's not the point, Gwen sighed. You're spending too much time transformed. Don't you think you should take a break? XLR-8 zipped through traffic, barely visible to the human eye. Why would I? This is the best thing that's ever happened to the Omnitrix. No more limitations, Gwen. Every power has limitations, Ben, even if they're not built in anymore. Just be careful. Always am, XLR-8 replied cheerfully, ending the call as he arrived at the school's rear entrance. He glanced around to ensure no one was watching, then touched the Omnitrix symbol. Green light flashed, and Ben was human again. The transition felt strange after so many hours as XLR-8, his body seemed too slow, too dull. He flexed his fingers, missing the sharpened claws of his alien form. Weird, he muttered, shaking off the feeling. He slipped through the door and made his way to his locker, where Kevin was waiting. There he is, Kevin smirked. The blur of Bellwood. Having fun? You have no idea, Ben grinned, opening his locker. I stopped a mugging at 3 a.m., then raced to Chicago for a hot dog, and still had time to patrol the whole city before sunrise. As XLR-8 the whole time? Kevin raised an eyebrow. Don't you get tired? Ben shrugged. The aliens don't seem to need rest the same way humans do. XLR-8 can go for days. And what about Ben Tennyson? Does he need rest? I am Ben Tennyson, Ben replied, slightly irritated by the question. Kevin held up his hands defensively. Just saying, you're spending a lot of time not being you lately. I'm still me, just better, Ben grabbed his textbooks. Anyway, did you guys figure out anything about Onimo's plan? Any sign of him? Nothing yet, Kevin said. But I found something interesting about that Galvan tech you activated. I showed the pictures you took to an old contact who deals in rare alien tech. He says it might be a prototype modification for the Omnitrix that Azimuth abandoned. Why would Azimuth abandon something this useful? Ben asked, shutting his locker. Kevin shrugged. No idea. My contact couldn't read all the Galvan text in your photos. But he did say that device was probably from early in the Omnitrix development cycle, before a lot of the safety features were standardized. Well, it works great, Ben said confidently. I feel better than ever. The school bell rang, signaling the start of second period. Ben sighed. 2 hours of history. If only there was an alien that could make time go faster. Kevin chuckled. Just don't transform in the middle of class again. Last time, Cash thought Stinkfly was going to eat him. No promises, Ben grinned, heading toward his classroom. As he slid into his seat, Mr. Harrison was already droning on about the Civil War. Ben tried to focus, but his thoughts kept drifting to what he could be doing instead. As XLR-8, he could patrol the entire state. As Jet Ray, he could soar through the stratosphere. As Big Chill, he could explore the deepest ocean trenches without worrying about pressure or oxygen. Why was he wasting time sitting in a classroom? The thought startled him. School had never been his favorite place, but he'd never considered it a complete waste of time before. He shook his head, trying to focus on Mr. Harrison's lecture. By the time the lunch bell rang, Ben had doodled pictures of 8 different aliens in his notebook and retained exactly 0 information about the Civil War. He grabbed his backpack and headed for the cafeteria, where he found Gwen and Kevin already seated at their usual table. You look terrible, Gwen said as he sat down. Didn't you sleep last night? Not really, Ben admitted. Was too busy being productive as XLR-8. You need sleep, Ben, Gwen pushed her tray of fruit toward him. And food. When's the last time you ate? Ben thought about it. Those Chicago hot dogs at around 4 a.m. Gwen and Kevin exchanged concerned looks. What? Ben asked defensively. XLR-8's metabolism is super fast. I wasn't hungry. Because XLR-8 processes energy differently than humans, Gwen explained patiently. But your human body still needs proper nutrition and rest. Ben was about to argue when his plumber's badge vibrated. He pulled it out to see an alert about a fire at the Bellwood chemical plant. "Gotta go," he said, already standing up. "We'll come with you," Gwen said, but Ben shook his head. "No need to have all of us miss class. I can handle a fire." Without waiting for a response, he dashed toward the nearest exit. Once outside, Ben slammed down the Omnitrix dial, transforming into Heat Blast. The fiery alien leapt into the air, propelling himself toward the chemical plant on jets of flame. He arrived to find the situation worse than expected. The main storage facility was engulfed, toxic smoke billowing into the sky. Firefighters were evacuating workers while trying to contain the blaze, but the intense heat kept forcing them back. "Stand aside," Heat Blast called, landing in front of the fire chief. "I can handle this." The chief looked relieved. "Ben Tennyson. Thank goodness. We can't get close enough to tackle the main fire, and the West storage unit contains unstable compounds that could detonate if the fire reaches them." Heat Blast nodded. "I'll absorb the main blaze, then cool down the surrounding areas. Just keep your people back." He charged directly into the inferno, feeling the flames being drawn into his body. Heat Blast could absorb fire, converting it into energy that enhanced his powers. The more he absorbed, the stronger he became. Minutes passed as Heat Blast systematically pulled the fire into himself, growing brighter and more powerful. The firefighters watched in awe as the massive blaze gradually diminished. When the main building was finally clear of flames, Heat Blast felt incredible. Power coursed through his body, more than he'd ever experienced in this form before. Normally, he would have reverted to human by now, unable to contain so much energy in the limited transformation time. "Now for the cooling part," he muttered, touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. In a flash of green, Heat Blast became Big Chill. The moth-like alien immediately spread his wings and unleashed a freezing breath across the smoldering buildings, extinguishing hot spots and cooling superheated metal. "Amazing," the fire chief said as Ben landed beside him. "You just saved millions in damage and probably several lives. That fire was minutes away from reaching the explosive compounds." Big Chill nodded. "Just doing my job." "Is everyone accounted for?" "All except for Dr. Morrow, she was working in the basement lab when the fire started. We haven't been able to reach that level." Without another word, Big Chill turned intangible and phased through the ground, descending into the basement level of the facility. The air was thick with smoke despite the extinguished flames, and structural damage was evident everywhere. "Dr. Morrow," he called, his ghostly voice echoing through the damaged lab. "Can you hear me?" A faint coughing sound led him to a collapsed section where a woman in a lab coat was trapped behind fallen debris. She looked up in surprise as Big Chill phased through the rubble. "Ben Tennyson," she coughed. "Let's get you out of here," Big Chill said, reaching for her. He turned both of them intangible and floated up through the ceiling, emerging outside where paramedics waited. Dr. Morrow thanked him profusely as the medics provided oxygen and checked her for injuries. Big Chill nodded politely, but he was already scanning the area for any remaining threats. He felt different, more focused, more calculating than usual. The human impulse to chat or joke seemed distant. Instead, he found himself mentally cataloging potential hazards, escape routes, and defensive positions. These were Big Chill's instincts, the protective, vigilant nature of the Necrophrygian species. Ben had never experienced them so strongly before, but now, after nearly an hour in this form with no time pressure, the alien mindset was becoming more prominent. "Ben." The voice startled him. Gwen and Kevin had arrived, both looking concerned. "The school called when you didn't come back after lunch. We figured you'd be here." Big Chill regarded them with glowing green eyes. "The situation is under control. Fire extinguished, personnel evacuated, structural integrity compromised but stable for now." Gwen frowned. "You sound different." Big Chill tilted his head. "More efficient communication is logical during crisis response." "Okay, that's weird," Kevin said. Since when do you talk like that? The comment triggered something in Ben's mind, a recognition that his speech pattern had indeed changed. He touched the Omnitrix symbol and transformed back to human. The shift was jarring. Suddenly, the hyper-awareness and calculated thinking were gone, replaced by a flood of human sensations and emotions. Ben staggered slightly, blinking in the sunlight. "Whoa," he muttered. "That was intense." "What happened?" Gwen asked, steadying him. Ben shook his head. "When I was Big Chill just now, I felt different. More like I was thinking the way Big Chill would think naturally." "You mean the alien was influencing your personality?" Kevin asked, suddenly serious. "Maybe." Ben ran a hand through his hair. "It's happened before, but usually just little things. This felt stronger, like the longer I stayed transformed, the more I started thinking like a necrophrygian instead of a human." Gwen's concerned expression deepened. "This is exactly why I'm worried about you spending too much time transformed. The Omnitrix was designed with a time limit for a reason, Ben." "It's fine," Ben insisted, the exhilaration of saving the chemical plant overriding his momentary concern. "I just need to be more aware of it. Actually, this could be useful, understanding how each alien thinks could make me more effective when using their powers." Kevin looked skeptical. "Or it could mess with your head until you forget you're supposed to be human." "I think I can tell the difference between myself and an alien," Ben said defensively. "Can you?" Gwen challenged. "Because that didn't sound like you back there. That sounded like a necrophrygian who happened to be named Ben." Before he could respond, Ben's plumber badge alerted him to another situation, a hostage scenario at Bellwood First National Bank. "We're not done talking about this," Gwen warned as Ben activated the Omnitrix. "Later," he promised, selecting Swampfire's hologram. "People need help now." Green light flashed, and Swampfire took off running toward downtown, leaving Gwen and Kevin behind once again. By evening, Ben had handled 6 more incidents around Bellwood, switching between aliens as needed without returning to human form once. The freedom to transform at will, without time constraints, made him more effective than ever before. As the sun set, Swampfire stood atop Mount Rushmore, the site of the old plumber base, gazing at the stars beginning to appear overhead. The crisp mountain air carried the scent of pine and earth, which his enhanced senses found particularly pleasing. He'd been in this form for nearly 3 hours now, using Swampfire's plant-based abilities to restore a section of forest damaged by illegal logging. The work was gratifying in a way he hadn't expected, nurturing new growth felt right, natural. His plumber badge buzzed again. With a sigh, Swampfire answered. "Ben," Gwen's voice sounded strained. "Where are you? We've been trying to reach you for hours." "Mount Rushmore," he replied, surprised by how raspy his voice had become, more plant-like than human. "Repairing some environmental damage." "Mount Rushmore? That's over 1,000 miles from Bellwood. What are you doing there?" Swampfire blinked, realizing he didn't have a clear answer. After stopping the bank robbery as Diamondhead, he'd switched to XLR-8 for patrol, then to Jet Ray when he spotted the logging operation from above. The decision to fly to South Dakota had been almost instinctual, driven by Swampfire's natural affinity for plant life. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "It just seemed important." A long pause followed. "Ben, I think you need to come back to Bellwood. And maybe stay human for a while." Swampfire frowned, the vegetation on his shoulders bristling slightly. "Why? I'm doing good work here." "Because your mom called me when you didn't come home or answer your phone." "Because you've been transformed for almost 24 hours straight now." "Because you're starting to make decisions that don't make sense for Ben Tennyson." The word stirred something in him, a distant recognition that she was right. With a reluctant sigh, Swampfire touched the Omnitrix symbol and transformed back to human. The change was like being doused with cold water. Suddenly, the keen awareness of every plant and microbe in the soil vanished. The satisfaction of nurturing growth disappeared, replaced by confusion and a growing hunger. "Okay," Ben said, his voice normal again. "Maybe you have a point. I'll head back now." "How?" Gwen asked. "You're in South Dakota." Ben looked at the Omnitrix, still glowing green and ready. "I'll just go Jetray and—" "No." Gwen interrupted. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. Stay human, Ben. Kevin and I will come get you in his car. That'll take hours. Then use the time to remember what being human feels like," she said firmly. "We'll track your plumber badge. Just, stay put, okay?" Ben sighed. "Fine. I'll wait here." He ended the call and sat on a nearby rock, suddenly aware of how tired his human body felt. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him that while Swampfire didn't need food, Ben Tennyson definitely did. "This sucks," he muttered, pulling a squashed energy bar from his pocket, the only food he had with him. As he ate, Ben stared at the Omnitrix. The watch had never felt like a limitation before, it had always been a source of incredible power. But now that he'd experienced true freedom from its constraints, going back to being just human seemed unbearable. Even sitting still was difficult. After a day of super speed, flight, and enhanced strength, his normal body felt like a prison, slow, weak, and limited. Just for a minute, he told himself, activating the Omnitrix. Just to warm up. He selected Heat Blast and transformed, immediately feeling better as warmth spread through his fiery body, banishing the mountain chill. He'd just stay like this until Kevin and Gwen were close, then switch back. They'd never know the difference. 2 hours later, Kevin's car pulled up to the base of Mount Rushmore. Ben, still as Heat Blast, spotted the headlights and quickly transformed back to human. The change hit him harder this time. The cold mountain air bit into his skin, and exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. Ben stumbled, nearly falling to his knees. "Not so easy, is it?" Kevin's voice came from behind him. Switching back after being transformed so long. Ben turned to see his friend leaning against a tree, arms crossed. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough to see you transform from Heat Blast just now," Kevin replied. "Thought Gwen asked you to stay human." "It was cold," Ben said defensively. "Where is Gwen, anyway?" Waiting in the car, Kevin nodded toward the parking area below. "She's been tracking Onimo's movements. Looks like he's setting up shop near the old abandoned military base outside Bellwood." Ben's interest immediately piqued. "Did she figure out what he's doing with the transformation data?" "Not yet. But whatever it is, it can't be good." Kevin studied Ben's face. "You look terrible, by the way." "Thanks," Ben muttered, following Kevin down the path toward the car. Each step in his human body felt increasingly awkward, like he was wearing shoes that didn't quite fit. When they reached the car, Gwen's expression confirmed Kevin's assessment. "Ben, you need food and sleep. Real sleep, not just switching to an alien that doesn't get tired." "I'm fine," Ben insisted, sliding into the back seat. "Just tell me about Onimo." As Kevin started the drive back to Bellwood, Gwen turned to face Ben. "He's been gathering resources, specialized equipment from genetics labs, power cells, rare minerals. Based on his past patterns, he's creating something that can counter your aliens." "Let him try," Ben said confidently. "With no time limit, I can switch between forms faster than he can adapt." "That's if the Omnitrix keeps working that way," Gwen pointed out. "We still don't know exactly what that Galvan device did, or if the effect is permanent." Ben touched the watch protectively. "It feels permanent. And powerful." "Power isn't everything, Ben," Gwen said softly. "Balance is important too." Ben sighed, leaning back in his seat. The exhaustion was becoming harder to fight. Despite his protests, his human body desperately needed rest. "Just a quick nap," he murmured, closing his eyes. "Wake me when we're back in Bellwood." Ben jolted awake to the sound of an explosion. The car swerved violently, throwing him against the door. "What's happening?" he gasped, disoriented from sleep. "Ambush!" Kevin shouted, wrestling with the steering wheel as something large crashed onto the highway in front of them. Ben looked out the windshield to see a monstrous creature blocking the road, at least 12 feet tall with multiple limbs and what appeared to be a combination of dinosaur, insect, and mechanical parts. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness, fixed directly on their car. "Onimo," Ben growled, instantly alert. "He tracked us somehow." The creature roared, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Behind it, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Onimo, riding some kind of hovering platform equipped with control panels and specimen containers. "Ben Tennyson." Onimo's amplified voice boomed across the highway. "I told you I'd create the perfect predator for each of your alien forms. This is just the first, specifically engineered to hunt Heat Blast." "How did he know you were using Heat Blast earlier?" Kevin asked, bringing the car to a stop. Ben's eyes widened. The transformation data he stole, he must have used it to create some kind of tracking system. The creature charged toward them, its heavy footsteps cracking the asphalt. Kevin swerved off the road, barely avoiding its massive claws. "Time to see what this thing can really do," Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. "If it's designed for Heat Blast, let's try something different." He transformed into Diamond Head, crystals erupting from his body as the car skidded to a halt. Without waiting, he leapt through the window and landed on the highway, facing Onimo's creation. "You'll have to do better than that, Onimo." Diamond Head called, forming his arms into razor-sharp blades. Onimo smiled wickedly. "Oh, I have, dear boy. I've been monitoring your transformations for days. My creature may be optimized for Heat Blast, but it can adapt to any of your forms." The monster's skin suddenly shifted, hardening into a reflective surface that looked disturbingly similar to Diamond Head's crystalline structure. Before Ben could react, it charged, its own limbs now formed into crystal blades. The impact sent Diamond Head sliding backward across the highway. The creature was incredibly strong, matching his crystalline durability with its adaptive hide. "It's copying your powers," Gwen shouted, emerging from the car with her hands glowing pink with mana. She fired several blasts at the creature, but they bounced off its reflective surface. "Then let's try something it can't copy." Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into Ghost Freak. His ghostly form floated upward, intangible and seemingly untouchable. "Ah, the ectoneurite form," Onimo nodded appreciatively. "I was hoping you'd choose that one." The creature's body shifted again, becoming partially transparent. It reached upward with suddenly elongated limbs, passing through Ghost Freak's intangible form but somehow managing to grip him. "What?" Ghost Freak gasped as the creature's claws disrupted his intangibility. "That's impossible." "Hardly," Onimo laughed. "I've studied the precise frequency of your transformations. My creation can match and counter each one." The creature hurled Ghost Freak toward the ground. Ben transformed mid-air into Cannonbolt, curling into an armored ball before impact. He bounced back toward the monster, spinning at high speed. The collision was tremendous, sending the creature stumbling backward. Ben uncurled, ready to press his advantage, when the monster's skin shifted yet again, developing the same yellow-white armored plating as Cannonbolt. "This is getting old, Onimo," Ben called, touching the Omnitrix symbol again. This time, he became Chromastone, the crystalline alien's rainbow energy gathering in his palms. "Indeed it is," Onimo agreed. "Which is why I brought friends." From the shadows, 3 more creatures emerged, each as monstrous as the first but with different configurations. One had wings similar to stinkflies, another resembled a twisted version of 4 arms, and the third seemed designed to counter XLR-8's speed with long, whip-like limbs. "I've been busy creating a counter for each of your most frequently used transformations," Onimo explained proudly. "And thanks to the data I collected, they can adapt to whatever you throw at them." Chromastone fired energy beams at the nearest creature, but it simply absorbed the attack, its body glowing with the same rainbow light. The winged monster dive-bombed him from above while the speed-based creature circled around behind. Ben! Gwen called, creating a mana shield around herself and Kevin as they tried to approach. "They're hurting you." She was right. The creatures were coordinating perfectly, forcing Ben toward a specific location where Onimo waited on his hovering platform. Chromastone leapt into the air, transforming into Jetray to escape the encirclement. The winged creature immediately gave chase, surprisingly agile despite its bulk. Its wings shifted, becoming more aerodynamic as it matched Jetray's maneuvers. They adapt so quickly. Ben muttered, dodging a barrage of projectiles from the creature's tail. Let's see how they handle something new. He touched the Omnitrix symbol again, cycling through his transformations rapidly. First Upgrade, then Wild Mutt, then Echo, each lasting only seconds before he switched to another form. The creatures struggled to keep pace with the rapid changes, their bodies shifting erratically as they tried to adapt. Impressive, Onimo admitted, adjusting controls on his platform. But ultimately futile. My creations learn from each transformation. The more forms you reveal, the more data they collect. Ben realized he was right. Each time he transformed, the creatures adjusted more quickly to the new form. He needed a different strategy. Landing as Swampfire, he touched the Omnitrix symbol again, but instead of transforming completely, he triggered a new function he discovered during his extended transformations. Green energy swirled around him as his body became a hybrid, Swampfire's plant-based body with Heatblast's flaming head and arms. What? Onimo's triumphant expression faltered. That's not possible. The hybrid form launched a barrage of flaming seeds that exploded on contact with the nearest creature. It tried to adapt, its skin shifting between fire-resistant scales and plant-like textures, unable to settle on either. Turns out there are benefits to removing time limits, Ben called, his voice a strange mixture of Swampfire's raspy tone and Heatblast's crackling speech. I can access abilities the Omnitrix never showed me before. He shifted again, this time combining XLR-8's speed with Diamondhead's crystalline arms. He raced around the confused creatures, slashing with crystal blades too quickly for them to track. Gwen and Kevin stared in amazement. Is he, combining aliens? Kevin asked, absorbing metal from a nearby guardrail to join the fight. I've never seen the Omnitrix do that before, Gwen replied, using her mana to trap one of the creatures. It must be part of the new functionality. Onimo's face contorted with rage. No matter. My creatures will adapt. They just need more time to analyze the hybrid forms. Time's up, Onimo. Ben shouted, shifting to a new combination, Big Chill's wings and frost powers with Chromastone's energy manipulation. He soared above the battlefield, releasing waves of freezing energy that crystallized two of the creatures solid. The remaining monsters tried to retreat, their adaptive systems overwhelmed by the unexpected combinations. Ben pursued them relentlessly, switching hybrid forms as needed to counter their abilities. Onimo frantically adjusted controls on his platform. Recalibrating adaptive response. Focus on the Omnitrix symbol, it's the common element in all transformations. The largest creature suddenly charged directly at Ben, ignoring his attacks and focusing entirely on the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Its claws extended, aiming for the device. Ben dodged, but the creature anticipated his movement, catching him with a secondary limb. Its claw scraped across the Omnitrix symbol, causing a shower of green sparks. Pain shot through Ben's body as the hybrid form destabilized. With a flash of green light, he reverted to human form, falling to the ground. Ben! Gwen screamed, casting mana platforms to break his fall. Ben landed roughly, the Omnitrix sparking and cycling through alien holograms on its own. Something's wrong, he called, trying to regain control of the device. It's malfunctioning. Onimo laughed triumphantly. As I suspected. The hybrid transformations put too much strain on the Omnitrix system. Now, my creatures, finish him while he's vulnerable. The remaining monsters converged on Ben's position. Kevin charged forward, his metal-covered body slamming into the nearest creature while Gwen created a protective barrier around Ben. "Can you transform?" Kevin shouted, grappling with the monster. Ben frantically adjusted the Omnitrix, which continued to cycle through aliens randomly. "It's not responding properly. I think the hybrid forms overloaded something. Or that creature's attack damaged it," Gwen suggested, straining to maintain her shield as two monsters pounded against it. Animo directed his platform toward them, grinning madly. At last. The mighty Ben Tennyson, rendered powerless by his own overconfidence. "My creatures will tear you apart, then I'll claim the Omnitrix for my own research." The Omnitrix suddenly stopped cycling and began to glow with intense green light. Ben felt a strange tingling sensation spreading up his arm. "What's happening?" he gasped as the light enveloped his body. To everyone's surprise, Ben began to transform without activating the Omnitrix manually. His body shifted rapidly between alien forms, forearms, wild mutt, upgrade, cannonbolt, each lasting only seconds before changing again. The Omnitrix is cycling through all previous transformations. Animo observed, eyes wide with scientific curiosity. Fascinating. The removal of the time limitation must have compromised other core systems. Ben couldn't control the transformations, each shift sending waves of different alien instincts crashing through his mind. The sensory overload was overwhelming: Wildmutt's smell, Ripjaw's water sensitivity, Heatblast's heat generation, all flooding his consciousness in rapid succession. "Make it stop," he cried during a brief moment as echo, his voice multiplying across the battlefield. "Ben, focus," Gwen called. "Try to stabilize on one form." Ben struggled to concentrate, attempting to mentally select a single alien as the Omnitrix continued its random cycling. For a brief moment, he managed to hold Diamondhead's form, but the Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed erratically, and he shifted again. Animo watched with growing excitement. The Omnitrix is experiencing a cascade failure. The safety protocols were there for a reason, Ben Tennyson. The rapid transformations were keeping Animo's creatures at bay, as they couldn't adapt quickly enough to the constantly changing targets. But Ben was losing himself in the process, each alien's instincts and sensory input fragmenting his consciousness. During a moment as brainstorm, clarity briefly returned. "The Galvan device," he managed to say in the alien's sophisticated accent. "It didn't simply remove limitations, it bypassed essential stabilization protocols." He shifted again, becoming Swampfire. "Kevin," he called, fighting to maintain coherent thought. "We need to get back to that cave. The device might have a reversal function." Kevin fought his way to Ben's side as Gwen expanded her mana shield to cover them both. "Can you even get there like this?" Ben transformed again, this time to Jetray. "I can try. Cover me." With a tremendous effort of will, Ben launched into the sky as Jetray, focusing entirely on maintaining that form despite the Omnitrix's instability. Behind him, he heard Gwen and Kevin engaging Animo's creatures, buying him time to escape. As he flew, Ben struggled against the Omnitrix's random cycling. Each time he felt a transformation coming, he concentrated on the image of Jetray, trying to force the watch to cooperate. It worked, partially. Though the Omnitrix symbol continued to pulse erratically, he managed to stay as Jetray long enough to cover significant distance. The strain was immense, like trying to hold back a flood with his bare hands. Just a little longer, he told himself as the familiar rock formations of the canyon came into view. Almost there. The cave entrance appeared ahead, partially collapsed from his earlier exit as Humungosaur. Jetray landed roughly, immediately transforming into Armadillo to tunnel through the debris. Inside, the Galvan chamber remained as he'd left it, the strange device still sitting on its platform. Ben fought to maintain control as the Omnitrix cycled again, this time to Chromastone. How do I reverse it? He muttered, examining the device. The crystalline components were dark now, their energy apparently spent. There has to be a way. The Omnitrix symbol flashed again, and pain lanced through Ben's body as he shifted to goop, the transformation more violent than before. The control over his semi-liquid form was tenuous, parts of his body threatening to dissolve completely. Azimuth! Ben called out desperately. If you can hear me through the Omnitrix, I need help. To his surprise, the Omnitrix symbol projected a small hologram, not of Azimuth, but of a diagnostic screen filled with Galvan script. Self-diagnosis mode? Ben guessed as he transformed again, this time to Big Chill. The moth-like alien's calm, analytical instincts helped him focus on the holographic display. The Galvan text was mostly indecipherable to him, but certain symbols matched those on the chamber walls. Ben studied both, trying to make connections despite the constant threat of another uncontrolled transformation. The device didn't just remove the time limit, he realized aloud. It removed all safeties between me and the alien DNA. That's why the personalities are bleeding through so strongly, there's nothing filtering the pure alien consciousness anymore. The next transformation hit like a thunderbolt, feedback, crackling with electrical energy that arced across the chamber, activating ancient systems built into the walls. Suddenly, the room was illuminated with pulsing light, symbols glowing in sequence. Ben recognized the pattern. It's a reset code, he muttered. The chamber is showing me how to reset the Omnitrix. Fighting another impending transformation, Ben placed his hand on the Omnitrix symbol and attempted to match the sequence shown on the walls. He turned the dial in the pattern indicated, feeling resistance with each adjustment. Come on, he growled as the symbol began to flash again. Just a little more. With the final turn, the Omnitrix emitted a high-pitched tone. Emergency reset protocol accepted, it announced in Azimuth's voice. Restoring default configuration. Intense green light flooded the chamber, and Ben felt the Omnitrix release a wave of energy that knocked him backward. The uncontrolled transformation ceased abruptly, leaving him in human form, sprawled on the chamber floor. The Omnitrix on his wrist had returned to its standard appearance, the faceplate glowing a steady green rather than the erratic pulsing of moments before. Did it work? Ben groaned, sitting up. His body ached from the strain of the rapid transformations, but his mind felt clearer, purely human again, without the jumble of alien instincts crowding his thoughts. He cautiously activated the Omnitrix, cycling through the holographic displays of his aliens. Everything seemed normal. Only one way to find out, he muttered, selecting Humungosaur and pressing down the core. The transformation was smooth and familiar. Ben felt the dinosaur alien strength flow through him, but the alien instincts were more muted now, filtered through the Omnitrix's proper protocols. Feels right, Humungosaur rumbled, flexing his massive arms. But let's see about that time limit. He waited, counting seconds that turned into minutes. At exactly 10 minutes, the Omnitrix symbol began to beep and flash red, the familiar warning that transformation time was running out. Back to normal, Ben sighed, both relieved and slightly disappointed as the transformation reversed, returning him to human form. The freedom had been exhilarating, but the cost to his identity had been too high. His plumber badge buzzed, Gwen trying to reach him. Ben. Are you okay? Did you find the device? I'm fine, he replied. The Omnitrix is back to normal. Time limit and all. Thank goodness, Gwen's relief was evident. We managed to drive off Onimo and his creatures, but they escaped. Kevin's pretty banged up, but he'll be fine. Where are you? Still at the canyon. I'll head back to Bellwood now. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, now in recharge mode. Though it might take me a while the old-fashioned way. After ending the call, Ben sat on the chamber floor, staring at the now dormant Galvan device. The power to stay transformed indefinitely had nearly cost him his human identity. The alien personalities had been fascinating but overwhelming, a reminder that the Omnitrix's limitations existed for good reasons. Limitations aren't always bad, he said to himself, getting to his feet. Sometimes they're what keep us human. As he made his way out of the cave, Ben reflected on what he'd learned. The unlimited transformations had shown him new possibilities, the hybrid forms, the deeper connection to his aliens, but also the danger of losing himself in the process. The Omnitrix beeped softly, indicating it had recharged. Ben smiled, activating it and selecting XLR-8. Just because there's a time limit, he said as he pressed down the core, doesn't mean I can't make the most of it. XLR-8 sped away from the canyon, heading back to Bellwood where Gwen and Kevin waited. The familiar beeping would start again in 10 minutes, but now, instead of seeing it as a limitation, Ben appreciated it as a reminder of his humanity, a call to remember who he really was beneath all the transformations. As he ran, Ben realized that the true power of the Omnitrix wasn't in unlimited transformations, but in the balance between alien abilities and human heart. It was a lesson worth learning, even if he'd had to learn it the hard way. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew Azimuth would approve. Chapter 2, Crossfade. 3 weeks flew by since Ben fixed the Omnitrix, and honestly, going back to the time limit sucked at first. Those 10 precious minutes felt like nothing compared to the endless freedom he'd experienced. But he'd adjusted, mostly. The memory of unlimited transformations lingered like a phantom limb, always there in the back of his mind. Today, Ben slumped in his desk during Mr. Harrison's history class, tapping his pencil against his notebook while staring at the clock. 2 more minutes until the Omnitrix recharged. Not that anyone was counting. Mr. Tennyson, Harrison's voice cut through Ben's daydream. Perhaps you'd like to share with the class your thoughts on the Treaty of Versailles. Ben straightened up. It was, definitely a treaty. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Harrison sighed, that special teacher sigh that somehow made you feel both pitied and judged at the same time. See me after class, Harrison said, turning back to the whiteboard. Ben glanced down as the Omnitrix silently shifted from red to green. Fully charged. He flexed his fingers, fighting the urge to transform right then and there. Just knowing he could was both comforting and maddening. His phone vibrated. A text from Gwen, plumber alert. Energy signature at museum. Meeting Kevin there. Ben raised his hand. Mr. Harrison. Bathroom emergency. Harrison didn't even turn around. Make it quick, Tennyson. Ben bolted from the classroom, down the hall, and into the empty boys' bathroom. He checked the stalls, clear, and activated the Omnitrix. Let's make this quick, he muttered, selecting Jetray. Green light flashed, and seconds later, the manta-ray-like alien phased through the school roof, soaring toward Bellwood Museum. The freedom of flight never got old. Jetray banked between skyscrapers, feeling the wind rush past. For these 10 minutes, nothing else mattered, not school, not Mr. Harrison's detention, nothing but the sky and speed. His communicator beeped. Kevin's voice came through. Where are you, Tennyson? Things are getting weird at the museum. 2 minutes out, Jetray responded. What kind of weird? The Forever Night kind of weird. But different. They've got new tech, stuff I've never seen before. Jetray accelerated, pushing his aerial speed to the limit. The museum came into view, its grand steps now crawling with armored figures. The Forever Knights had always been tech-savvy, but these soldiers looked different, sleeker armor with glowing blue lines running through the joints. Gwen stood at the top of the steps, pink mana shields deflecting energy blasts while Kevin, covered in marble absorbed from a statue, grappled with 2 knights. Jetray dive-bombed the scene, firing neuroshock blasts that scattered a group of knights surrounding a delivery truck. He landed beside Gwen, immediately assessing the situation. About time, Gwen said, expanding her shield to cover him. They're after something in the special exhibit, artifacts from an ancient technological civilization. So, Tuesday. Jetray quipped, dodging an energy blast. What's with the fancy new armor? As if answering his question, one of the knights pointed a small device at him. It emitted a high-pitched whine, and Jetray felt something strange, a pulling sensation centered on the Omnitrix symbol. What the? His transformation suddenly felt unstable, the edges of his body flickering green. Ben! Gwen shouted as Jetray stumbled, nearly dropping to one knee. The knight advanced, the device whining louder. The changeling's power wavers. Press the advantage. With a massive effort, Jetray launched himself skyward, away from the device's range. The destabilizing sensation faded, but the Omnitrix symbol started flashing red. Great timing, he muttered, swooping back down toward a different group of knights. The red flashing accelerated, and mid-dive, the transformation gave out. Ben tumbled through the air as his human form returned, landing hard on the museum steps. Ow, he groaned, rolling to avoid a knight's energy lance. That thing messed with the Omnitrix. Kevin smashed through two knights to reach Ben's side. Yeah, noticed that. They came prepared for you specifically. Ben scrambled to his feet as the Omnitrix cycled into recharge mode. Then I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way for a few minutes. He ducked under a knight's swing, using the hand-to-hand combat moves Gwen had been teaching him. Without alien strength, his punches didn't do much against armored opponents, but he managed to stay one step ahead of their attacks. Fall back to the exhibit, a commanding voice called from inside the museum. Unlike the other knights, this one wore armor with a crown-like helmet, the new Forever King. The knights began an organized retreat, covering each other as they withdrew into the museum. Ben, Kevin, and Gwen regrouped at the entrance. The Omnitrix needs 2 more minutes, Ben said, checking the still red watch face. What are they after? Some kind of crystal tech in the new exhibit, Kevin explained. Supposedly from a civilization that predates human history. The curator was freaking out about its power source still being active after thousands of years. Perfect forever night bait, Gwen added. Ancient tech they can weaponize against aliens. Ben eyed the Omnitrix impatiently. Like whatever messed with my transformation. Speaking of which, Kevin said, eyeing Ben oddly, you okay? You look off. I'm fine, Ben replied, though he felt strange. After weeks of using his transformations to the limit, even brief periods as a human felt increasingly uncomfortable. His own skin seemed too tight, his senses too dull. The Omnitrix finally shifted to green. Ben grinned. Time for round 2. He activated the watch, cycling through aliens. Need something the knights won't expect. Something their anti-transformation tech won't work on. Just hurry, Gwen urged, they're getting away with the artifacts. Ben selected Goop and slammed down the core. The transformation washed over him, turning his body into a malleable green slime controlled by a gravity projector. Perfect. Let's see their tech handle this. Goop's watery voice burbled as he slithered rapidly through the museum entrance. Inside, displays had been smashed, and security guards lay unconscious but alive. Ben followed the trail of destruction to the special exhibition hall, where the Forever Knights were loading crystal artifacts into containment units. Sorry, guys, Goop called, stretching his amorphous body to block the exit. Those belong to the museum. The Forever King turned, his crown-like helmet gleaming under the exhibition lights. Ah, Ben Tennyson. Always so predictable. He raised a gauntlet hand. Even your choice of transformation. For Knights activated devices similar to the one outside. They surrounded Goop, creating a perimeter of energy that interfered with his gravity projector. Not again. Goop struggled to maintain his form as his body began to lose cohesion. The king approached, studying Ben with clinical interest. Fascinating. Our research indicated your polymorph form would be susceptible to gravitational interference, but the speed of destabilization exceeds expectations. Goop's gravity projector sparked and sputtered. Ben fought to keep his consciousness as his liquid body began separating into puddles. The sensation was horrifying, like feeling parts of himself drift away, becoming disconnected. Ben. Kevin and Gwen burst into the exhibition hall. Kevin immediately charged the nearest knight, while Gwen cast a mana bubble around Goop's struggling form, trying to contain his dissolving body. The projector. Ben managed to communicate. They're disrupting it. Kevin tackled one of the knights, smashing the interference device. The energy field weakened just enough for Ben to regain partial control. He focused his consciousness, pulling his scattered form back toward the central gravity projector. The Forever King observed with detached interest. Note the subject's resistance, he said, apparently recording observations. Molecular cohesion stronger than typical polymorph specimens. I'm not a specimen. Ben gathered enough of Goop's mass to form a concentrated stream, shooting directly at the king. The acidic slime splashed against royal armor, immediately beginning to corrode the metal. The king hissed in pain but didn't retreat. Instead, he activated something on his gauntlet. A pulse of energy rippled outward, and Ben felt the Omnitrix symbol embedded in Goop's gravity projector react violently. Green light flashed as the transformation reversed prematurely. Ben crashed to the floor in human form, the sudden return of solid mass leaving him disoriented and gasping. Excellent, the king said, his voice clinically detached. The Omnitrix responds to the harmonic disruptor precisely as theorized. Two knights seized the opportunity to grab Ben by the arms, hauling him to his feet. The Omnitrix, forced into premature recharge, glowed red and unresponsive. Let him go. Gwen flung mana discs that knocked one knight aside, but more quickly took his place. The king approached Ben, studying the Omnitrix with disturbing intensity. We've been watching you, Ben Tennyson. 4 weeks. Learning your patterns, analyzing your transformations. Ben struggled against the knight's grip. Stalker much? Your recent behavior has been most informative, the king continued, ignoring the jab. Extended transformations, decreased time in human form, increasing reliance on alien abilities for even mundane tasks. What's your point? Ben growled, still fighting to break free. The king leaned closer, his face hidden behind his helmet. My point is that you're proving our case. Humanity is being eroded by alien influence, beginning with you. Kevin smashed through another knight, getting closer to Ben. Don't listen to this nut job, Tennyson. The Forever Knights have always sought to protect Earth from alien threats, the king continued. But you, Ben Tennyson, represent a new category of danger, the willing corruption of humanity from within. Ben felt a chill that had nothing to do with the knights holding him. The king's words hit uncomfortably close to his private thoughts, the growing discomfort in his human form, the increasing preference for his alien transformations. You don't know what you're talking about, Ben said, but his voice lacked conviction. The king tilted his head. Don't I? How many hours did you spend as a human last week? 5. Less. The Omnitrix isn't just changing your body, Ben Tennyson. It's changing your mind. A massive crash interrupted the conversation as Kevin finally broke through, tackling the knights holding Ben. Gwen created a mana platform that lifted the three of them toward a broken skylight. This conversation isn't over, Ben Tennyson, the king called as they escaped. You're becoming what we've always feared, neither human nor alien, but something else entirely. Ow. Easy with the antiseptic. Ben winced as Gwen cleaned a cut on his forehead. Don't be such a baby, she replied, but her touch gentled. They were at Kevin's garage, regrouping after the museum encounter. You got lucky. That cut is the worst of your injuries. Ben nodded, though lucky wasn't how he felt. Being forced back to human form twice in one fight had left him strangely shaky, like he'd lost something essential. His senses felt muted, his body weak and clumsy. What did the Forever King mean about watching you for weeks? Kevin asked, working on his car as usual when stressed. How'd they even track your transformations? I don't know, Ben said, checking the Omnitrix again, still red. But their tech was specifically designed to counter different aliens. That's new. And concerning, Gwen added, putting away the first aid kit. But I'm more worried about what he said about you spending less time as human. Ben shrugged. So what if I prefer being useful? My aliens can do things I can't. Yeah, but you are human, Tennyson, Kevin said, looking up from the engine. Or at least you're supposed to be. What's that supposed to mean? Ben snapped, more defensively than he intended. Kevin wiped his hands on a rag and faced Ben directly. It means you've been weird lately. Always transformed, always rushing off, barely hanging out as yourself anymore. I've been busy fighting bad guys. Ben stood up, suddenly agitated. Sorry if saving the world interrupts your car maintenance schedule. It's not about that, Gwen interjected, stepping between them. Ben, when was the last time you had dinner with your parents? Or played soccer? Or did anything just as Ben? The question caught him off guard. Last weekend, I think. Or maybe. He trailed off, realizing he couldn't remember. The days had blurred together in a series of transformations and battles. Even school had become just the annoying human interlude between alien activities. The Omnitrix beeped, turning green again. Ben's attention immediately snapped to it, his fingers instinctively moving toward the dial. See? Kevin pointed at Ben's hand. You can't even go an hour without checking if you can transform again. It's like you're addicted. I am not addicted, Ben retorted, but he pulled his hand away from the Omnitrix with conscious effort. I just like being prepared. Gwen and Kevin exchanged a look that Ben knew too well, the "we're worried about Ben" look that irritated him to no end. What? He demanded. Just say whatever you're thinking. Gwen sighed. We think you might be relying too much on the Omnitrix lately. Even before the museum today, you've been transformed more often than not. Because I'm helping people. Ben threw up his hands in frustration. Since when is that a bad thing? It's not, Kevin said, surprisingly gentle. But the Forever King wasn't completely wrong. You have been different lately. After that whole unlimited transformation thing, which was weeks ago, Ben interrupted. And the watch is back to normal now. 10-minute limit, same as always. But you're constantly pushing that limit, Gwen pointed out. Transforming the second it recharges, staying alien until the last possible moment. Ben felt cornered and, worse, understood. They were voicing thoughts he'd been trying to ignore, how uncomfortable his human body had become, how he counted the seconds until he could transform again, how the world seemed duller through human senses. Maybe I just finally got good at using the Omnitrix, he said, forcing a casual tone. Maximizing my hero time. Kevin shook his head. That's not it, and you know it. Before Ben could respond, his plumber badge beeped with an incoming transmission. Saved by the Bell. He activated it immediately. Ben Tennyson, a familiar, gruff voice came through. Ben's eyes widened. Azimuth? Who else would it be? The Galvan inventor sounded irritated, as usual. We need to talk. Immediately. Gwen and Kevin moved closer to the badge. About what? Ben asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew. About your recent misuse of my greatest creation, of course. Azimuth snapped. I'm detecting anomalous usage patterns and transformation degradation. The Omnitrix is not a toy, Ben Tennyson. Ben winced. If this is about that Galvan device I found, the Legacy Protocol. Yes, obviously. I've been monitoring the after effects since you triggered it. Even though you've restored the time limitation safeguard, the protocol caused other changes to the transformation matrix. Is Ben in danger? Gwen asked, concern evident in her voice. Azimuth sighed audibly. Not immediately, but potentially yes. The Legacy Protocol was an experimental feature I abandoned for good reason. It creates microfissures in the barrier between human consciousness and alien DNA. In English, please. Kevin requested. The alien forms are influencing his human personality, Asmuth clarified impatiently. And vice versa. The longer and more frequently he transforms, the more pronounced the effect becomes. Ben felt a chill. Is that why I've been feeling different? As a human? Precisely. You're experiencing transformation addiction, a condition where the human mind begins to prefer alien forms over its original state. Left unchecked, it can lead to identity degradation and eventually, complete psychological dissociation. The garage fell silent as the three teenagers processed this information. How do we fix it? Ben finally asked, his voice smaller than he intended. The damage isn't permanent yet, Asmuth replied. But you need to significantly reduce transformation frequency and duration. Give your human consciousness time to reassert its dominance. You mean, stop being a hero? Ben couldn't keep the dismay from his voice. I mean, be more selective about when you transform. Asmuth snapped. Use the Omnitrix only when absolutely necessary, not for everyday tasks or continuous hero work. Your human identity needs time to recover. Kevin gave Ben a pointed look. Told you. Ben ignored him. For how long? At least 2 weeks of minimal use, Asmuth said. Preferably longer. 2 weeks. Ben couldn't imagine it. But what about protecting people? The Forever Knights are up to something big, and they've got tech that can force me out of alien form. All the more reason to be cautious, Asmuth countered. If your dependency on transformations continues to worsen, such vulnerabilities could be catastrophic. Not just for you, but for anyone you're trying to protect. The implications hung heavy in the air. Ben stared at the Omnitrix, his constant companion for years, now potentially threatening his very identity. I'll try, he said finally. See that you do, Asmuth replied. I didn't entrust you with the Omnitrix so you could lose yourself to it. The transmission ended abruptly. Kevin broke the uncomfortable silence. Well, that confirms it. You're officially grounded from alien hero duty. I am not, Ben protested automatically. Asmuth said minimal use, not no use. And with the Forever Knights planning something, we can handle the Knights, Gwen interrupted firmly. You need to take this seriously, Ben. We're talking about your identity here. Ben wanted to argue, but the concerned faces of his cousin and friend stopped him. And deeper down, in a place he didn't want to acknowledge, he knew they were right. Something had been changing in him, a growing disconnect from his human life, a constant craving for transformation that went beyond heroics. Fine, he sighed. I'll cut back. But I'm not sitting on the sidelines completely. If there's serious trouble, emergency use only, Gwen agreed. Deal. Deal, Ben muttered, already feeling anxious at the prospect of limited transformations. How had the watch gone from an amazing gift to something he needed to ration? When had transformation become less a power and more a craving? The Omnitrix gleamed innocently on his wrist, its green light both comforting and concerning. For the first time since he was 10 years old, Ben Tennyson wasn't sure if he controlled the watch, or if it was controlling him. 72 hours without transformation felt like an eternity. Ben sat at the dinner table with his parents, pushing food around his plate while barely listening to their conversation. Everything felt wrong, colors too dull, sounds muted, sensations bland. Human senses were so limited compared to his alien forms. Ben. His mother's voice broke through his thoughts. Did you hear what I asked? Huh. Sorry, no, Ben admitted, forcing himself to focus. I asked if everything's okay. You've been quiet all week, and your principal called about skipped classes. Ben winced. Just dealing with some stuff. Hero stuff. His father raised an eyebrow. Hero stuff that keeps you from going to school. It's complicated, Ben muttered, not meeting their eyes. How could he explain that he was going through alien transformation withdrawal? That sitting in class as plain Ben Tennyson felt increasingly like imprisonment. Well, uncomplicated, his mother said firmly. Whatever's going on, school comes first. Ben nodded automatically, though the concept seemed increasingly irrelevant. What was the point of algebra when he could transform into brainstorm and solve complex equations instantly? Why practice soccer when XLR8 could outrun any human athlete? His phone buzzed with a text from Gwen, meeting at Mr. Smoothie in 20. Forever night activity. I need to go, Ben said, standing abruptly. Plumber business. His parents exchanged concerned looks, but they'd long ago accepted the unusual demands of their son's double life. His father sighed. Be careful. And be home by 11. Sure thing, Ben replied, already heading for the door, the prospect of action, even without transformation, more appealing than another minute of stifling normalcy. He rode his bicycle to Mr. Smoothie, the physical exertion frustratingly inefficient compared to any of his alien forms. The Omnitrix remained green and available on his wrist, a constant temptation he fought to ignore. Emergency use only, he reminded himself. This isn't an emergency yet. Gwen and Kevin were waiting at their usual table, heads bent over a laptop displaying what looked like building schematics. What's up? Ben asked, sliding into a seat. Kevin turned the laptop toward him. Remember those artifacts the Knights stole from the museum? We tracked the energy signature to this location, an old factory outside town. Based on power consumption records, Gwen added, they're running some kind of massive energy experiment. Whatever they took is at the center of it. Ben studied the schematics. So what's the plan? Reconnaissance only, Gwen emphasized, giving Ben a pointed look. We need to know what they're building before we make a move. And we thought you'd want in, Kevin added, even on your transformation diet. Ben nodded gratefully. 3 days of normal life had him climbing the walls. When do we leave? Now, Kevin said, closing the laptop. My car's around back. 20 minutes later, they parked on a ridge overlooking the abandoned factory. The building looked derelict from the outside, but thin lines of blue light escaped from covered windows, matching the energy signature of the Knight's new armor. Definitely our guys, Kevin whispered as they crouched behind rocks for cover. So, sneaky sneaky. Or knock knock. Reconnaissance, remember? Gwen reminded him. We find an entry point, look around, and get out without being detected. Ben fidgeted, the Omnitrix seeming to grow heavier on his wrist. It would be a lot easier if I went Ghost Freak or Big Chill. Could phase right through those walls, be in and out in minutes. No transformations unless absolutely necessary, Gwen said firmly. We discussed this. Fine, Ben sighed. Hard way it is. They made their way down the ridge, sticking to shadows. Kevin absorbed the material from a metal pipe, coating his body in protective steel, while Gwen prepared mana shields. Ben felt conspicuously vulnerable in his human form, armed with nothing but his wits and a plumber badge. A service entrance on the factory's east side looked promising, less guarded than the main doors. Kevin made quick work of the lock, and they slipped inside, finding themselves in a dimly lit corridor. Power readings are strongest that way, Gwen whispered, pointing toward the center of the building. Pink mana glowed softly around her hand, illuminating their path. They moved cautiously through the factory, passing storage rooms filled with crates bearing Forever Night insignias. Ben's instincts screamed danger at every turn, his hand hovering near the Omnitrix by reflex. The urge to transform grew stronger with each passing minute. Focus, Tennyson, Kevin murmured, noticing Ben's twitchy behavior. Human spy mode, remember? Ben nodded tightly, forcing his hand away from the watch. They continued deeper into the facility, the blue light growing stronger and an electrical humming filling the air. They rounded a corner and froze. The factory's main floor had been converted into a massive laboratory. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by energy pylons. The stolen artifacts were arranged in a precise pattern, their crystalline surfaces pulsing with blue light. Forever Knights in their upgraded armor moved purposefully around the space, monitoring equipment and adjusting controls. And overseeing it all was the Forever King, his crown-like helmet gleaming as he studied holographic displays. "We need to get closer," Ben whispered. "I can't see what they're building." Gwen pointed to a catwalk above the lab floor. "Up there. We'll have a better view." They backtracked to find stairs, ascending carefully to the upper level. From the catwalk, the Knights project came into clear view, and it was worse than they'd imagined. At the center of the platform, housed within the ring of artifacts, was a device that looked disturbingly similar to the Omnitrix. But instead of green, it glowed with the same blue energy as the Knight's armor. "Is that what I think it is?" Kevin whispered. "They're building their own version of the Omnitrix," Gwen confirmed, horror evident in her voice. Ben stared in disbelief. "How is that even possible? Only Azimuth has the knowledge to create an Omnitrix." "The artifacts," Gwen realized. "The museum said they came from a pre-human technological civilization. What if that civilization had contact with Galvans? Or at least similar technology?" Below them, the Forever King raised his arms. "Commence power calibration sequence. Today we reclaim humanity's future from alien corruption." Knights at control stations activated switches. The artifacts glowed brighter, channeling energy into the Omnitrix-like device. The blue light intensified, forming connections between the artifacts and creating a web of energy. "Whatever they're doing, we need to stop it," Ben said, instinctively reaching for the Omnitrix. "Wait," Gwen grabbed his arm. "We don't know what that device does yet. We need more information." "It's obviously a weapon against aliens," Ben argued. "Specifically against me. All the more reason not to transform right into their trap," Kevin countered. A knight below looked up, scanning the catwalks. "My king." Motion detected on the upper level. "Intruders," the king bellowed. "Find them." "So much for reconnaissance," Ben muttered as knights rushed toward the stairs. Kevin grinned, his metal-covered fists clenching. "Now it's knock-knock time." Gwen created mana platforms, lifting Kevin above the approaching knights. He dropped down among them like a metal avalanche, sending armored figures flying. Gwen followed with precise mana attacks, targeting knights at control stations. Ben hesitated, torn between joining the fight as a human or transforming against Azimuth's advice. The decision was made for him when a knight fired an energy weapon directly at him. He dove aside as the catwalk exploded where he'd been standing. "Ben!" Gwen called as he dangled from the damaged walkway. "I'm fine," he shouted back, pulling himself up. "Focus on shutting down that device." The Forever King noticed Ben and pointed. "Tennyson." Perfect timing to witness humanity's triumph. He pressed a control on his gauntlet, and the central device pulsed ominously. A wave of blue energy expanded outward. When it reached Ben, the Omnitrix sparked and emitted a high-pitched whine. Pain shot up his arm, making him cry out. "What did you do?" he demanded, clutching the watch. "Merely demonstrating our harmonic disruptor field," the king replied smugly. "Soon, we'll be able to neutralize the Omnitrix, and all alien technology, across the entire city." The implications hit Ben like a truck. A city-wide field that could disable the Omnitrix would leave him powerless, and potentially harm any peaceful aliens living in Bellwood. "Not going to happen," Ben growled, activating the Omnitrix despite the pain. "Emergency definitely qualified now." He selected Chromastone and slammed down the core. Green light washed over him as he transformed into the crystalline alien, his body absorbing the ambient energy from the disruptor field. "Your field only works on the Omnitrix itself," Chromastone called down, his crystalline body glowing with absorbed power. "Not on the transformations once they're complete." A temporary limitation, the king responded, adjusting controls. One we're about to overcome. The artifacts pulsed brighter. A focused beam of energy shot from the central device directly at Chromastone. Instead of hurting him, the beam was absorbed into his crystalline body, converting to power he could use. Thanks for the charge. Chromastone leapt from the catwalk, landing on the lab floor. He released the absorbed energy in a powerful blast that scattered knights and damaged equipment. Kevin and Gwen pressed the advantage, Kevin smashing control panels while Gwen contained knights with mana bubbles. The laboratory descended into chaos as alarms blared and emergency protocols activated. "You fools," the king shouted. "You don't understand what you're interfering with. This technology will save humanity from becoming obsolete." Chromastone advanced on the central platform. "By building a knockoff Omnitrix? That's your master plan?" "Not just any device," the king retorted. "One that will preserve human purity. Unlike yours, which corrupts human DNA with alien influence." Another beam fired from the device, stronger this time. Chromastone absorbed it, but the intensity pushed him back several steps. The energy coursing through his body felt strange, not just powerful but somehow invasive. "Something's wrong," he called to Gwen and Kevin. "This energy isn't normal." The king laughed. "Of course not. It's specifically calibrated to interface with transformation technology. To control it." Chromastone felt the energy within him shift, targeting the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Pain lanced through his crystalline form as the symbol began to flash erratically. "Ben!" Gwen cried, seeing his distress. "Destroy the artifacts." Ben managed to shout before an overwhelming surge of energy forced him to his knees. Kevin immediately began smashing the ancient crystals while Gwen created a shield around Ben, trying to block the energy beam. But the connection had already been established, the foreign energy infiltrating the Omnitrix's systems. Chromastone's form flickered, shifting involuntarily between alien shapes, Diamond Head, then Humongosaur, then Big Chill, each lasting only seconds before changing again. "Yes," the king exulted. "The harmonic synchronization is working. Soon we'll have complete control over the transformation matrix." Through flashes of different alien consciousness, Ben struggled to maintain a coherent thought. Each transformation brought different senses, different instincts, different ways of processing the world. The rapid switching left no time to adjust, creating a kaleidoscope of fragmented awareness. In a brief moment as brainstorm, clarity returned enough for Ben to analyze what was happening. "They're attempting to override the Omnitrix's central control mechanisms," he shouted in Brainstorm's sophisticated accent. "The artifacts are creating a quantum bridge between." The transformation shifted again, cutting off his explanation. Now Swampfire, Ben fought through the methane haze of plant-based thinking. "Destroy the central device," he managed before changing again. Kevin had smashed 3 of the artifacts, disrupting the energy pattern. The blue light flickered unstably, power surging unpredictably through the system. Gwen focused her mana on the central device, trying to contain its increasingly erratic pulses. "No," the king shouted. "You're creating a feedback loop. The power needs controlled release." Too late. The remaining artifacts overloaded, their ancient crystalline structures unable to handle the energy surge. One by one, they shattered in brilliant blue explosions that rocked the facility. The central device pulsed one final time before exploding in a blinding flash. The shockwave threw everyone back, extinguishing lights and plunging the laboratory into darkness. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, casting the scene in dim red light. Gwen created mana orbs for better illumination, revealing scattered knights and destroyed equipment. "Ben," she called, searching frantically. "Ben, where are you?" A groan came from near the ruined central platform. Ben lay there in human form, the Omnitrix on his wrist dark and unresponsive. Kevin helped him sit up, checking for injuries. "You okay, Tennyson?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Ben blinked slowly, his expression confused. I think so. Everything's fuzzy. The Forever King emerged from behind damaged equipment, his armor smoking and crown helmet askew. This isn't over, he snarled, activating a device on his gauntlet. A portal shimmered into existence behind him. We've learned what we needed about the Omnitrix's vulnerabilities. You're not going anywhere. Gwen flung mana bolts that the king barely dodged. On the contrary, he replied, backing toward the portal. This was merely a test run. The real work continues elsewhere. He turned to Ben with a final pointed remark. Remember what I said, Ben Tennyson. You're already becoming something other than human. Ask yourself, is that what you really want? Before anyone could stop him, the king stepped through the portal, which snapped closed behind him. Around the laboratory, the remaining knights were also retreating, using smaller portal devices to escape. Should we go after them? Kevin asked, helping Ben to his feet. Ben shook his head, still disoriented. Not now. The Omnitrix needs time to reset after whatever they did to it. They made their way out of the factory, Ben leaning heavily on Kevin for support. Outside, the night air was cool and clear, stars visible above the abandoned industrial site. How do you feel? Gwen asked as Kevin helped Ben into the car. Weird, Ben admitted. Like. I can't quite remember things clearly. What things? Kevin started the engine, concern evident in his voice. Ben frowned, concentrating. School stuff. The name of that history teacher who's always on my case. What my room looks like. Human things. Gwen and Kevin exchanged worried glances. It's probably just temporary, Gwen said, though her voice lacked conviction. After all those rapid transformations. Maybe, Ben said quietly. He stared out the window as they drove, the familiar landscape of Bellwood somehow seeming foreign, like a place he'd visited rather than where he'd lived his entire life. The strange energy had done something to him, accelerated the identity bleed that Azimuth had warned about. The alien personalities had always influenced him subtly during transformations, but now the boundaries felt more porous, human memories intermingling with alien instincts in a confusing jumble. Hey, Kevin's voice interrupted his thoughts. Earth to Tennyson. We're at your house. Ben looked up, surprised to find they'd arrived at a building that logically he knew was home but somehow didn't feel like it. Right, he mumbled, opening the car door. Thanks for the ride. We'll come by tomorrow, Gwen promised. After you've had some rest. Maybe the Omnitrix will be working again by then. Ben nodded absently, walking toward the front door. Inside, his parents were watching TV in the living room. You're back earlier than expected, his mother noted with approval. Everything okay? Fine, Ben replied automatically. Just tired. He climbed the stairs to his bedroom, each step requiring conscious thought rather than muscle memory. Inside his room, he stared at the soccer trophies, video game posters, and scattered clothes with a strange detachment, like looking at someone else's life. The Omnitrix remained dark on his wrist. Ben tapped it experimentally, but no response came. For once, the lack of access to his transformations didn't bother him as much as it should have. What bothered him was the growing suspicion that something fundamental was wrong. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to recall simple things, his first day of school, his 10th birthday when he found the Omnitrix, his favorite food. Some memories came easily, others felt distant or fragmented, and still others seemed to blend with experiences from his various alien forms. Had he always been this disconnected from his human life? Or was it getting worse? The Forever King's words echoed in his mind, "You're already becoming something other than human." The most disturbing part wasn't the accusation itself, it was that part of Ben wondered if that would be so bad. Morning brought no improvement. Ben woke disoriented, momentarily confused by the sensation of human limbs and human senses. The Omnitrix remained inactive, though the faceplate had shifted from black to a dull red, suggesting some internal recovery process. Breakfast with his parents felt like an anthropological study, observing human rituals that should have been familiar but somehow weren't. His mother noticed his distraction. "Ben, you're barely touching your food. Are you feeling sick?" "Just tired," he replied, the excuse becoming his standard response. "Big mission yesterday." His father lowered his newspaper. "Maybe you should take a break from the hero business for a while. Focus on being a teenager." The suggestion struck Ben as absurd. Being a teenager? That limited, awkward state seemed increasingly irrelevant compared to the power and purpose of his alien forms. "Yeah, maybe," he said noncommittally, rising from the table. "I'm going to Gwen's to study." Outside, he found Kevin waiting in his car. "Your cousin sent me," Kevin explained as Ben got in. "Said you weren't answering your phone." Ben checked his pockets. "Must have left it upstairs." "Where's Gwen?" "With that Cooper kid, trying to analyze data from yesterday's night tech." "How's the watch?" Ben glanced at the Omnitrix, still glowing dully red. "Still recharging or rebooting or whatever. No transformations yet." "And how about you?" Kevin asked carefully, pulling away from the curb. "Any better with the memory stuff?" Ben hesitated. The truth was, things had gotten worse. More human memories had become hazy overnight, while alien instincts and perspectives felt increasingly natural. "Not really," he admitted. "It's like, parts of me are missing. Or maybe just filing themselves differently." Kevin nodded, surprisingly understanding. "I know something about that. When I absorbed energy as a kid, it messed with my head. Made Kevin Levin feel like someone else." The comparison hadn't occurred to Ben before. "How'd you deal with it?" "Poorly," Kevin said with a wry smile. "But eventually I figured out that fighting it just made it worse. Had to accept both parts as me, then decide which one I wanted to strengthen." They drove in silence for a while, Ben considering Kevin's words. The problem wasn't just alien DNA affecting his human mind, it was that part of him preferred the alien perspectives. The clarity of Brainstorm, the protective instincts of Big Chill, the raw power of Humungosaur, all felt more useful, more defined than the complicated mess of human adolescence. "We're here," Kevin announced, pulling up to an abandoned plumber base outside town, one of their regular meeting spots for sensitive discussions. Inside, Gwen and Cooper were huddled over alien tech salvaged from the Forever Night laboratory. Cooper, a teenage technopath with an affinity for machinery, had wires connected from his makeshift headset to various crystal fragments. "Ben." Gwen looked up with relief. "How are you feeling?" "Still weird," he admitted. "Omnitrix is still down too." Cooper disconnected himself from the equipment. "The energy these crystals produce is fascinating, it specifically targets transformation technology. Like it was designed for that purpose." "The museum said the artifacts were thousands of years old," Gwen noted. "Predating human civilization. Which means whoever made them knew about Galvan technology," Kevin concluded. "Or something similar enough." Ben examined a crystal fragment. "So what were the Knights trying to do exactly? Build their own Omnitrix?" "Not exactly," Cooper replied. "Based on what I can tell from the schematics, they were building a control device, something that could override and direct the functions of transformation technology. Like a remote control for the Omnitrix," Kevin simplified. Ben's blood ran cold. "They wanted to control my transformations? Make me transform against my will? Or prevent you from transforming at all," Gwen added grimly. A perfect anti-alien weapon in their eyes. Cooper nodded. "The energy overload yesterday disrupted their work, but the concept was sound. With more refined control over those artifacts, they could potentially create a device that affects all transformation technology within a certain radius." "Great," Ben muttered. "So not only is the Omnitrix messing with my head, now the Knights want to turn it against me." "Speaking of which," Gwen said carefully, "how bad is the memory situation today?" Ben hesitated, reluctant to worry them further. But lying wouldn't help anyone. Worse. I had trouble remembering how to tie my shoes this morning. But I could perfectly recall the atmospheric composition of Pyros, Heatblast's home planet. The concern on their faces deepened. We should contact Azimuth again, Gwen suggested. This is exactly what he warned about, accelerated by the Knight's energy weapon. Already tried, Kevin said. No response yet. Ben paced nervously, a habit he'd picked up from Wildmutt's predatory instincts rather than human restlessness. I can't just sit around waiting for alien tech experts to figure this out. The Forever Knights are still out there, planning something bigger. And you're in no condition to fight them, Gwen countered firmly. You need to focus on recovering your human memories. How? Ben demanded. By sitting in a classroom pretending to care about algebra? By playing video games? None of that feels real anymore. The outburst left an uncomfortable silence. Ben hadn't meant to reveal quite so much, to admit how disconnected he felt from his human life. Cooper cleared his throat awkwardly. I might have an idea. The crystals create specific energy patterns that interact with the Omnitrix. Theoretically, we could use them to create a stabilizing field, something to strengthen the barrier between your human consciousness and the alien DNA. Is that safe? Gwen asked doubtfully. Probably not, Cooper admitted. But neither is letting his condition deteriorate. Ben approached the workbench. Do it. Whatever it takes. Ben, Gwen protested, we should wait for Azimuth, we don't know when he'll respond, Ben interrupted. And every hour I feel less like myself. Less human. He turned to Cooper. How long would it take to set up? A few hours, maybe. I'd need to calibrate very carefully. Do it, Ben repeated. I'll help however I can. Kevin gave Gwen a look that silenced her further protests. They all recognized the urgency in Ben's voice, the fear beneath his determination. Whatever was happening to him was accelerating, and they were running out of time. Cooper immediately set to work, connecting crystal fragments to plumber tech and his own custom equipment. Ben sat nearby, occasionally answering questions about the Omnitrix's functionality or his symptoms. The technical discussions helped focus his fragmented thoughts, giving him temporary respite from the confusion of his competing memories. By late afternoon, Cooper had assembled a circular platform surrounded by modified crystal fragments. Wires connected the apparatus to a control panel where he made final adjustments. Okay, I think it's ready, he announced finally, wiping sweat from his brow. The crystals should generate a harmonic field that reinforces the natural barriers within the Omnitrix's transformation matrix. Should? Gwen repeated skeptically. Cooper shrugged. Best I can offer without months of research. Ben stepped toward the platform. How does it work? Stand in the center, Cooper instructed. When I activate the field, you might feel some discomfort as the energies realign. The Omnitrix will probably react too. Probably, Kevin muttered. Very reassuring. Ben took his position in the center of the platform. The crystal fragments surrounding him began to glow faintly blue, the same color as the Knight's technology, which didn't inspire confidence. Ready? Cooper asked, hand poised over the activation switch. Ben nodded, bracing himself. Cooper flipped the switch. The crystals pulsed brighter, and a humming vibration filled the air. Energy fields became visible between the fragments, creating a dome-like structure around Ben. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Omnitrix suddenly shifted from red to green, its faceplate brightening rapidly. Ben felt a strange sensation, like parts of his mind were being sorted and separated, memories filing themselves into distinct categories. It's working, he called out. I can feel things becoming clearer. Cooper grinned triumphantly. The field is reinforcing the natural barriers in the transformation matrix. Your human consciousness should be reasserting dominance. For several minutes, the process continued smoothly. Ben felt increasingly centered, human memories becoming sharper while alien instincts receded to their proper place in his awareness. Then something changed. The Omnitrix began to spark, green electricity arcing between it and the crystal fragments. The harmonious hum turned to a discordant whine. "What's happening?" Gwen demanded as the energy field fluctuated wildly. Cooper frantically adjusted controls. "Something's wrong. The Omnitrix is fighting the field." Pain shot up Ben's arm from the watch, spreading throughout his body. He dropped to his knees, gritting his teeth against the increasing agony. "Shut it down," Kevin shouted, moving toward the platform. "I'm trying," Cooper replied, but the controls had stopped responding. "It's locked in some kind of feedback loop with the Omnitrix." Inside the energy dome, Ben felt his consciousness splitting again, but worse than before. Human memories and alien instincts weren't just mixing, they were actively competing for dominance. Various alien perspectives flashed through his mind without physical transformation, each momentarily taking control of his thoughts. "Too many voices," he gasped, clutching his head. "Can't focus." The Omnitrix suddenly erupted with green light, initiating a transformation sequence. Ben's body began to shift, but instead of changing completely into one alien, parts of his body transformed differently. His right arm became Heatblast's flaming limb, his left leg shifted to XLR-8's velociraptor-like appendage, and his torso partially crystallized like Diamond Head. "He's stuck between forms." Gwen cried in horror. The partial transformations continued shifting, different alien parts appearing and disappearing across his body in a chaotic display. Ben's consciousness fractured further, overwhelmed by the conflicting sensory input and instincts from multiple alien species simultaneously. Kevin had seen enough. Absorbing metal from a nearby pipe, he charged forward and smashed into the crystal array, disrupting the energy field. The dome collapsed in a shower of sparks and fractured crystal. Ben collapsed to the floor, his body reverting to fully human form. The Omnitrix powered down, once again dark and unresponsive. Gwen rushed to his side, cradling his head. "Ben. Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Gwen," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "What happened?" "The stabilization field backfired," Cooper explained, joining them with a portable scanner. Instead of reinforcing barriers, it created conflict between the different consciousness patterns. "Is he okay?" Kevin demanded, kneeling beside them. Cooper scanned Ben's head and the Omnitrix. "His brainwave patterns are bizarre. Multiple competing frequencies. And the Omnitrix has gone into some kind of protective shutdown." Ben struggled to sit up, his movements uncoordinated. "Everything's wrong," he whispered. "I don't know which memories are mine anymore." "All of them are yours," Gwen insisted, squeezing his hand. "The human ones and the alien ones. You just need to reorganize them." Ben shook his head weakly. "Not that simple. They're all fighting for control." His gaze drifted, focusing on something only he could see. "Big Chill thinks we should hide somewhere cold and dark. Swampfire wants sunlight. Brainstorm is trying to calculate probabilities. And Human Ben. Human Ben is getting lost in the noise." The stark admission silenced them all. This wasn't just confusion or memory problems, Ben's very identity was fragmenting, different aspects of his transformed selves asserting independence within his mind. Kevin was the first to recover. "We need Azimuth. Now. This is way beyond what we can fix." "Agreed," Gwen said. "But how do we reach him if he's not responding?" Ben's expression suddenly shifted, intelligence sharpening his features. When he spoke, his voice carried Brainstorm's sophisticated cadence. "The Omnitrix contains emergency protocols for direct communication with its creator. If we can reactivate it and access the command structure." He trailed off, expression shifting again to confusion. The brief moment of clarity from Brainstorm's intelligence had passed, leaving human Ben struggling once more. "That's actually helpful," Cooper said, returning to his equipment. "If we can provide enough power to temporarily activate the Omnitrix without triggering a transformation, we might be able to access those emergency protocols." While Cooper worked, Gwen stayed with Ben, trying to keep him grounded through conversation. It was increasingly difficult, his attention wandered, his responses sometimes coming from alien perspectives rather than his human personality. "Remember when we were kids?" Gwen asked, holding his hand firmly. "Before the Omnitrix? We used to fight all the time on that road trip with Grandpa Max." Ben's eyes cleared briefly. "You put mud in my shoes," he recalled with a faint smile. "And I put a lizard in your sleeping bag." "That's right," Gwen encouraged, relieved to see a genuine human memory surface. "And Grandpa made us wash all the dishes together as punishment." "Dishes," Ben repeated distantly. "Human custom. Unnecessary for heat blast, fire sterilizes. Inefficient for XLR-8, too slow." He shook his head, trying to focus. "Sorry. Hard to stay, me." After nearly an hour of work, Cooper announced a breakthrough. "I think this will work. It won't fix the underlying problem, but it should give us direct access to the Omnitrix's communication array." They moved Ben to the workbench, where Cooper had set up a power transfer system. Delicate wires connected the dark Omnitrix to plumber tech and salvaged crystal components. "Ready?" Cooper asked. Ben nodded weakly. "Do it." Cooper activated the system. Power flowed into the Omnitrix, causing its faceplate to glow green briefly before stabilizing at a steady pulse. The holographic interface activated, displaying Galvan symbols instead of the usual alien selection wheel. "Now what?" Kevin asked. "Emergency protocols," Ben murmured, suddenly clear-eyed again. His fingers moved across the holographic display with surprising precision, entering complex command sequences. "Creator override, direct interface." The holographic display shifted, forming a direct communication link. Seconds later, Asmatha's irritated face appeared. "What is the meaning of this emergency override?" "I was in the middle of crucial," he stopped, eyes narrowing as he took in Ben's condition. "What have you done now, Ben Tennyson?" "Not his fault," Gwen interjected quickly. "The Forever Knights used some kind of ancient crystal technology that interfered with the Omnitrix. It accelerated the transformation addiction effects you warned about." Asmatha's expression darkened further. "Show me these crystals immediately." Cooper held up a fragment for the holographic transmission. Asmath studied it, his eyes widening in rare surprise. "Impossible," he muttered. "Those are Contumelia artifacts. Their civilization vanished millennia ago. The Forever Knights were using them to build a device that could control the Omnitrix remotely," Kevin explained. Asmatha's attention snapped back to Ben. "And you, in your infinite wisdom, decided to engage them directly despite my explicit warning to minimize transformation?" "Emergency," Ben managed to say, his voice fluctuating between his own and various alien inflections. "They were building a weapon." "And now you've become the weapon," Asmath replied grimly. "The Contumelia were master manipulators of consciousness across dimensional barriers. Their technology interfaces directly with the space between identities." "Can you help him?" Gwen asked, cutting to the crucial question. Asmath sighed heavily. "This is beyond remote assistance. The Omnitrix needs complete recalibration, and Ben's consciousness requires stabilization therapy only available on Galvan Prime." "So you're saying we need to bring him to you," Kevin clarified. "Immediately," Asmath confirmed. "Before the fragmentation becomes irreversible." Ben's expression shifted again, momentary panic breaking through. "Irreversible?" "The Omnitrix's transformations are meant to be temporary, not just physically but mentally," Asmath explained with unusual patience. Extended exposure to alien consciousness, especially accelerated by Quantimelia technology, can create permanent neural pathways. Given enough time, the barriers between human and alien consciousness will dissolve completely. And then what happens? Gwen asked, though her expression suggested she already feared the answer. Then Ben Tennyson effectively ceases to exist, Azimuth said bluntly. Replaced by a fragmented consciousness with aspects of multiple species but no coherent core identity. The diagnosis hung heavily in the air. Ben stared at his hands, watching as the skin occasionally rippled with partial, unconscious transformation attempts. How do we get him to Galvan Prime? Kevin finally asked. The Rust Bucket 3 is still being repaired after our last space mission. I will send coordinates for a nearby plumber transportation hub, Azimuth replied. They will have ships capable of the journey. I will alert them to expect you and prepare for immediate departure. His expression softened slightly. And Ben? Ben looked up, momentarily lucid. Yes. Try to focus on your earliest human memories. Childhood experiences, formed before the Omnitrix. They will help anchor your core identity until you reach me. The transmission ended, the holographic display fading as the Omnitrix returned to its dormant state. Cooper carefully disconnected his equipment. The plumber hub is about 2 hours from here, Kevin said, checking the coordinates Azimuth had sent. We should leave immediately. Gwen helped Ben to his feet. Can you walk? He nodded, though his movements remained uncoordinated. As they made their way to Kevin's car, Ben struggled visibly to maintain focus, occasionally stopping mid-step as competing instincts fought for control. The drive to the plumber hub passed in tense silence, broken only by Gwen's gentle prompting of childhood memories as Azimuth had suggested. Sometimes Ben responded coherently, recalling fishing trips with Grandpa Max or birthday parties from before he found the Omnitrix. Other times, alien perspectives intruded, analyzing highway engineering with Brainstorm's precision or noting potential threats with Wildmutt's instincts. At the hub, disguised as an abandoned airfield, plumbers were already preparing a ship for departure. The small vessel was designed for speed rather than comfort, clearly chosen to get Ben to Galvan Prime as quickly as possible. As they approached the ship, a sudden commotion erupted from the far side of the airfield. Explosions rocked the perimeter fence, and familiar blue energy beams cut through the evening air. Forever Knights! Kevin shouted, absorbing the metal from a nearby railing. How did they find us? A Knight commander stepped forward, pointing at Ben. Our sensors detected the Omnitrix power signature. The king wants the boy and the device. Plumbers moved to defensive positions as Knights poured through the breached fence. Energy weapons fired from both sides, creating chaos across the airfield. Get Ben to the ship, a plumber magister ordered. We'll hold them off. Kevin and Gwen hurried Ben toward the waiting vessel, staying low to avoid energy blasts. They'd nearly reached the boarding ramp when the Forever King himself appeared, stepping through a portal directly in their path. I think not, he said calmly, his upgraded armor gleaming in the firefight's glow. Ben Tennyson isn't going anywhere. Gwen immediately cast a mana shield around them. You've done enough damage already. Get out of our way. The king studied Ben with clinical interest. Fascinating. The interference effect is more pronounced than our models predicted. He raised a scanner, collecting readings from Ben's increasingly unstable condition. The consciousness fragmentation is accelerating beautifully. You knew this would happen, Kevin realized, stepping protectively in front of Ben. The attack on the museum, the laboratory, it was all to expose Ben to the Quantimelia energy. Very good, Mr. Levin, the king nodded approvingly. The anti-transformation weapon was merely a cover for our true objective, studying how alien DNA affects human consciousness under stress conditions. Why? Gwen demanded, strengthening her shield as Knights surrounded them. Because humanity stands at a crossroads, the king replied. Alien influence grows daily. Some, like the plumbers, advocate integration. We prefer to understand the threat before it consumes us. He gestured to Ben. And what better test subject than the boy who transforms into aliens at will? Ben stepped forward, momentarily clear-eyed with anger. You used me as a guinea pig? You volunteered when you took that device upon yourself, the king countered. The Omnitrix represents everything the Forever Knights stand against, the dilution of humanity through alien power. We simply accelerated what was already happening to you naturally. More explosions rocked the airfield as plumbers engaged the Knights in fiercer combat. The ship's engines powered up behind them, ready for immediate departure if they could reach it. Enough talk, Kevin growled, hands forming into metal blades. You're not stopping us. The king sighed. Such loyalty to a being who isn't even fully human anymore. He activated a device on his gauntlet. Let's see where your friend's consciousness truly lies, shall we? A focused beam of blue energy shot toward Ben, penetrating Gwen's shield with surprising ease. It struck the dormant Omnitrix, which suddenly flared to life, its faceplate cycling rapidly through different alien silhouettes. Ben cried out, dropping to his knees as his body began to transform involuntarily, but not into any single alien. Instead, his form shifted chaotically between species, never completing any one transformation. His right arm became heat blasts, then diamond heads, then forearms, all in the span of seconds. The Quantumelia energy breaks down transformation barriers, the king explained over the chaos. Without proper containment, the transformations become as fractured as the consciousness. Gwen tried to stabilize Ben with mana energy, but the transformations were too erratic. One moment he had Swampfire's upper body with XLR-8's legs, the next, Big Chill's wings sprouted from a torso covered in chromostones crystals. Make it stop. Ben's voice shifted between his own and various alien vocalizations. Too many, can't control. Kevin charged the Forever King in rage, but Knights intercepted him with energy weapons that forced him back. Gwen split her attention between shielding Kevin and trying to help Ben, her powers stretched thin. In the midst of the chaotic transformations, something unexpected happened. Ben's eyes suddenly glowed with intense green light. When he spoke, his voice carried authority beyond any of his usual transformations. Enough. A shockwave of green energy exploded outward from his unstable form, knocking back Knights and disrupting their weapons. The king staggered, his control device sparking in his hand. Ben rose to his feet, his body still shifting between alien forms but somehow more controlled now. The Omnitrix symbol, which appeared and disappeared across his transforming body, glowed with steady purpose rather than erratic flashing. You wanted to see what happens when human meets alien, he said, his voice a strange harmony of multiple species speaking in unison. Be careful what you wish for. He raised a hand, heat blasts one moment, Swampfires the next, and directed a blast of combined energy at the king's control device. The gauntlet exploded, sending the Forever King flying backward. Ben. Gwen called uncertainly. Is that you? The shifting figure turned to her, multiple alien features flowing across a face that occasionally showed glimpses of human Ben. All of me, he replied. For now. With surprising coordination, he moved toward the ship, gesturing for Gwen and Kevin to follow. The Knights, disoriented by the energy blast and their leader's fall, failed to regroup quickly enough to pursue. At the boarding ramp, Ben paused, his form momentarily stabilizing as mostly human with faintly alien features. This won't last, he said urgently. Whatever happened, temporary alignment of consciousness. Azimuth, need to reach him, before I fragment completely. They hurried aboard, and the plumber pilot immediately initiated takeoff procedures. Through the viewport, they watched Forever Knights regrouping around their fallen king, too late to prevent the ship's departure. As the vessel accelerated into the upper atmosphere, Ben collapsed into a seat, his momentary control fading. The partial transformations resumed their chaotic cycling, though less violently than before. What happened back there? Kevin asked, strapping himself in for the journey to space. For a minute, you seemed in control. Ben's expression shifted between confusion and clarity. The king's device forced all transformations active simultaneously. Instead of fighting each other, briefly aligned. Like harmony in chaos. His voice fluctuated between human and alien tones. But unsustainable. Structure breaking down again. Gwen took his partially transformed hand, currently somewhere between human and Swampfire's plant-like appendage. Hold on, Ben. We'll be at Galvan Prime soon. As Earth disappeared below them and the ship entered hyperspace, Ben stared out the viewport, his reflection in the glass showing the constant flux of his condition. Human features appeared and faded, replaced by alien characteristics in an endless cycle. What if? He began hesitantly, what if Azimuth can't fix this? Neither Gwen nor Kevin immediately answered, the question hanging heavy between them. He will, Gwen finally said with forced confidence. He's the smartest being in 5 galaxies, remember? Ben nodded, though doubt showed through his shifting features. And if he can't? If this is permanent? Then we deal with it, Kevin said firmly. You're still you, Tennyson, human, alien, whatever. That won't change how we see you. The simple assertion seemed to comfort Ben. He closed his eyes, focusing on Azimuth's advice to concentrate on childhood memories. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace toward Galvan Prime, Ben Tennyson fought his most difficult battle yet, not against external enemies, but against the dissolution of his very identity. Behind his closed eyelids, memories flickered like an old film reel, finding the Omnitrix in the forest, summers with Grandpa Max, arguing with Gwen, meeting Kevin, facing countless enemies, saving lives, making mistakes, learning, growing, changing. Human experiences intertwined with alien perspectives, creating a tapestry of consciousness unlike any other in the universe. Whether that uniqueness would be his salvation or his undoing remained to be seen. For now, all he could do was hold on to the core truth that had guided him since he was 10 years old. With great power came great responsibility, to the universe, to Earth, to his loved ones, and to himself. Even if himself was becoming an increasingly complicated concept. Chapter 3, Resonance. Galvan Prime looked like something out of a sci-fi fever dream. Massive crystalline structures stretched toward the purple-tinged sky, impossibly thin bridges connecting tower to tower. Everything glowed with an inner light that made Ben's fractured vision swim with colors most humans would never see. Breathtaking, isn't it? The Galvan medical technician beside Ben's hoverstretcher spoke with reverent pride. Most beings never witness our world this way. Most beings don't have 17 different types of vision fighting for control, Ben muttered, his voice shifting mid-sentence from his normal tone to Ghost Freak's raspy whisper. The medical team rushed him through Azimuth's research complex, a sprawling facility that dwarfed everything around it. Ben's form continued its unstable flux, cycling between partial transformations. One moment his arm crystallized like diamond heads, the next it burst into heat blasts flames. The Galvan medical team had encased him in a containment field that kept these transformations from damaging their equipment, but did nothing to ease his condition. Gwen jogged alongside the hoverstretcher, her face tight with worry. Where's Azimuth? Ben's getting worse. The first thinker awaits in the transformation chamber, the lead technician replied. Please, maintain calm. Your cousin's condition is severe but not yet irreversible. Yet? Kevin growled from Ben's other side. Real comforting. The corridor opened into a massive circular room dominated by a platform that looked suspiciously like a larger version of the Omnitrix's core. Hovering above various control stations was Azimuth himself, tiny compared to the humans but commanding the space with undeniable authority. Finally, the Galvan creator said, his tone more concerned than irritated for once. Bring him to the central platform immediately. The medical team positioned Ben's hoverstretcher over the platform, then gently transferred him onto its surface. The moment Ben touched the platform, it lit up with familiar green energy patterns that matched the Omnitrix's circuitry. Whoa, Ben gasped as the energy began interacting with his unstable transformations. The random shifting slowed momentarily, like a film played at reduced speed. Azimuth hopped down beside him, examining the Omnitrix with a specialized tool. The Quantimelia energy has corrupted the transformation matrix at a fundamental level. Your consciousness is bleeding across multiple transformation states simultaneously. Can you fix it? Gwen asked, stepping as close to the platform as the Galvan guards would allow. I created the Omnitrix. Of course I can fix it, Azimuth replied with characteristic confidence, though something in his eyes betrayed deeper concern. The device, at least. Ben's mind is another matter entirely. Kevin crossed his arms. What's that supposed to mean? Azimuth connected a diagnostic cable from his tools to the Omnitrix. Holographic displays erupted around them, showing complex Galvan data streams that Ben found himself understanding through Brainstorm's intelligence. Neural pathway degradation accelerating, Ben murmured in Brainstorm's accent. Consciousness fragments approaching critical dissonance threshold. Fascinating and deeply troubling. Azimuth looked up sharply. You can read Galvan technical data now. Only when Brainstorm's consciousness dominates, Ben replied, his voice returning to normal. Which happens randomly. It's like, channel surfing through different aliens, but in my head. Precisely the problem, Azimuth nodded grimly. The barrier between your human consciousness and the stored alien DNA patterns is deteriorating rapidly. Where once transformation temporarily overlaid alien instincts onto your human base, now they're integrating permanently. The platform beneath Ben pulsed with energy, scanning his body and mind simultaneously. The results appeared on Azimuth's displays, causing the Galvan's eyes to widen. Impossible, he muttered. The transformation matrix has begun establishing permanent neural pathways. The DNA patterns are writing themselves into your base genetic code. English, please. Kevin requested. Gwen, understanding faster, gasped. He's becoming permanently part alien. Not just mentally but physically. Correct, Azimuth confirmed. The Omnitrix was designed to create temporary physical transformations while maintaining the user's core consciousness. What's happening now is a fundamental breakdown of that separation. Ben struggled to sit up, his body momentarily stabilizing as mostly human with faint alien features, crystalline patches on his skin, eyes that flashed between human green and various alien forms. So what happens to me, he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Do I just keep changing until there's nothing left of Ben Tennyson? Azimuth's expression softened slightly. Not if I can help it. I've prepared a 3-phase treatment. He manipulated controls, and the platform shifted configuration around Ben. First, we stabilize the Omnitrix itself and prevent further degradation. Second, we use Galvan consciousness mapping technology to identify and reinforce your core human identity patterns. Third, we attempt to re-establish proper barriers between your human consciousness and the alien DNA. Attempt? Gwen caught the qualifier immediately. The process is not without risk, Azimuth admitted. Particularly given how far the integration has progressed. He turned to Ben. You must understand, some degree of permanent change may be unavoidable. The question now is whether we can preserve enough of your core identity for you to remain, fundamentally, Ben Tennyson. Ben stared at his hands, watching as patches of Heat Blast's magma skin appeared and disappeared. Do it. Whatever it takes. Azimuth nodded and activated the platform. Green energy enveloped Ben completely, creating a cocoon-like field around him. The chaotic transformations slowed further, and for the first time in days, Ben felt the competing consciousnesses in his mind begin to separate into distinct patterns rather than a jumbled mess. The first phase will take approximately 6 hours, Azimuth informed Gwen and Kevin. I suggest you rest. Galvan accommodations have been prepared for you. Gwen hesitated. Is it safe to leave him? Safer than having your mana energy interfere with the delicate recalibration, Azimuth replied. My most skilled technicians will monitor him constantly. Kevin gently took Gwen's arm. Come on. Ben's in good hands. We'll be back before he's done. As they reluctantly left the chamber, Ben called out, "Guys." They turned back. Through the green energy field, his eyes looked briefly, fully human again. "Thanks. For everything." Gwen smiled, though tears threatened. "Just focus on getting better. We'll be right here when you're done." Left alone with Azimuth and the medical team, Ben felt the energy field begin to work more deeply. The Omnitrix on his wrist stopped its erratic cycling and stabilized, though it remained inactive. "Try to focus on who you are," Azimuth instructed, monitoring the process from a floating platform nearby. "Not the aliens you become, but Ben Tennyson himself." "That's getting harder to remember," Ben admitted, closing his eyes as the energy field intensified. "Then perhaps this will help." Azimuth pressed a control, and suddenly Ben's mind filled with images, memories of his life, from earliest childhood to recent events, projected directly into his consciousness by the Galvan technology. Playing soccer as a 5-year-old. Fighting with Gwen during that fateful summer road trip. Finding the Omnitrix in the forest. First transformations. Battles won and lost. Friends made. Lessons learned. The stream of pure human memories acted as an anchor, giving Ben something to hold on to as the alien consciousnesses were gradually separated from his core identity. "Remarkable," Azimuth murmured, studying the data streams. "Your mind is fighting to reintegrate itself despite the damage. Few beings would show such resilience." "Stubborn," Ben managed to say through the haze of energy and memory. "That's pure human Ben Tennyson." A ghost of a smile crossed Azimuth's face. "Indeed. Perhaps that's why the Omnitrix chose you after all." As the first phase of treatment continued, Ben drifted in and out of awareness, sometimes lost in memories, other times acutely conscious of the alien presences being carefully disentangled from his human mind. It was like watching pieces of himself being sorted and categorized: Heatblast's passionate intensity, XLR8's impatience, Diamondhead's steadfastness, Big Chill's protective instincts, all distinct but still somehow part of him. Time lost meaning in that green cocoon of energy. It could have been minutes or days when Azimuth finally announced, "First phase complete. The Omnitrix has been stabilized and isolated from your neurological system." Ben blinked, the energy field dimming enough for him to see clearly. The chaotic transformations had stopped, leaving him in his human form, though strange energy patterns still flickered occasionally beneath his skin. "How do you feel?" Azimuth asked, scanning him with various instruments. "Clearer," Ben replied, surprised to hear his normal voice without alien overtones. "Like my head's not so crowded. But still, different. The alien consciousnesses have been contained but not completely separated," Azimuth explained. "That's the next phase, more difficult and, I'm afraid, more painful." "Whatever it takes," Ben repeated his earlier commitment. Azimuth studied him thoughtfully. "You understand that complete reversal may be impossible. Some aspects of the alien DNA have integrated too deeply with your neural pathways." "Meaning?" "Meaning you may retain certain alien traits permanently. Enhanced intellect from Brainstorm. Sensory capabilities from Wildmutt. Instinctual responses from various species." Ben considered this. "But I'll still be me." "Mostly." "That's the goal," Azimuth confirmed. "To preserve your core identity while accommodating the permanent changes." He paused. "Are you prepared to continue?" Ben nodded. "Let's do this." Azimuth reconfigured the platform. The energy field changed from green to a pulsing white-blue. This phase maps your consciousness in its entirety, then rebuilds the proper barriers between human and alien aspects. You will experience your mind as a physical space, a common neurological response to Galvan consciousness mapping technology. So, like a dream? More like a waking hallucination where your mental structures take physical form, Azimuth corrected. What you experience there will feel entirely real. The energy field intensified. Ben gasped as his awareness of the physical world faded, replaced by a sensation of falling through endless space. Colors swirled around him, resolving gradually into recognizable shapes and patterns. He found himself standing in a vast landscape unlike anything he'd ever seen. The sky shimmered with the green energy of the Omnitrix, while the ground beneath his feet constantly shifted between different terrains, earth, crystal, fire, ice, representing different alien environments. "Whoa," Ben breathed, turning slowly to take in the panorama. "This is inside my head." "A representation of your consciousness," Azmatha's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "What you perceive is your mind's interpretation of its own structure." In the distance, Ben could see distinct regions, a section of volcanic terrain that radiated heat blast's energy, a crystalline formation that sparkled like Diamondhead, a misty area that shifted and phased like Ghostfreak's domain. But at the center of everything stood a simple structure that looked strikingly like his human home in Bellwood, though it appeared damaged, walls cracked, roof partially collapsed, foundation crumbling. "My house." Ben approached the structure cautiously. "Your human core," Azmatha's voice explained. "The foundation of your identity, currently under significant stress from the alien integration." As Ben neared the house, figures began to emerge from the different regions of the landscape, familiar yet different. Heat Blast approached from the volcanic region, but his flames burned with Ben's facial features visible within the fire. Diamondhead emerged from the crystal formations, his posture and movements unmistakably Ben's despite the alien form. One by one, representations of Ben's transformations gathered: XLR-8, Four Arms, Ghost Freak, Swampfire, Big Chill, and others. Each bore distinctive traits that made them instantly recognizable as aspects of Ben himself rather than pure alien forms. "What's happening?" Ben asked, watching the gathering with a mix of fascination and apprehension. "Your fragmented consciousness is manifesting its different aspects," Azmath replied. "Each transformation has developed a partial independence within your mind. The goal is reintegration under your core human identity's control." The alien aspects approached Ben, forming a circle around him. None seemed hostile, but their very presence radiated power that made the human house behind him tremble further. Heat Blast spoke first, his voice a blend of the alien's crackling tones and Ben's own inflections. "Why fight what we've become? The integration makes us stronger, faster, smarter. We could be more than human or alien," Diamondhead added. "Something entirely new." Ben felt drawn to their arguments. The power they offered was undeniable, the best aspects of each species combined into something greater than the sum of its parts. "The house is damaged anyway," Big Chill observed with cool logic. "Human limitations were always temporary." Ben looked back at the crumbling structure. It did seem small and fragile compared to the vast alien landscapes surrounding it. Yet something about it called to him: warm memories, human connections, the simple joy of being Ben Tennyson. "That house is who I am," he said finally. "Everything else came after." "We are also who you are now," Brainstorm countered, his sophisticated voice reasonable and persuasive. "You cannot simply excise us from your identity without losing crucial aspects of yourself." "I'm not trying to get rid of you," Ben replied, understanding dawning. "But this isn't balanced. You're overwhelming the core, my human self. There needs to be order, not chaos." The landscape shifted in response to his realization. The house behind him stabilized slightly, cracks in its foundation beginning to heal. "A conscious choice must be made," Azmatha's voice instructed. "How will these aspects relate to your core identity?" Ben considered the alien forms surrounding him. Each represented powers and abilities he'd relied on for years. Each had shaped who he'd become. Simply banishing them wasn't the answer, nor was surrendering his humanity to their influence. "You're all part of me," he acknowledged. "But I need to be the one in control, not the other way around." He turned and walked toward the house, his human core. As his hand touched the doorknob, energy flowed from him into the structure, repairing damage and strengthening foundations. The alien forms watched, their expressions ranging from resistance to understanding. "I need you," Ben told them, turning back. "All of you." But as tools and aspects of Ben Tennyson, not as competing identities. The landscape responded to his decision, the chaotic boundaries between regions beginning to organize into more deliberate patterns. The alien forms themselves changed, becoming less independent entities and more clearly extensions of Ben's core self. "This is the correct path," Asmatha's voice approved. "Continue strengthening your core identity while establishing proper relationships with your transformation aspects." Ben entered the house, a perfect replica of his Bellwood home inside, though with subtle differences that reflected his unique perspective. Family photos on the walls included images of his alien adventures. The living room contained mementos from various worlds he'd visited. Everything was simultaneously human and influenced by his experiences as a hero. As he moved through the house, reinforcing his connection to each room and memory, the structure continued healing. Outside, the alien landscapes maintained their distinct characteristics but organized themselves in concentric rings around the house, no longer threatening to overwhelm it. One by one, the alien aspects entered the house as well, each finding an appropriate place within Ben's mental structure. Brainstorm's influence integrated with the study, enhancing Ben's intelligence without dominating it. Heatblast's passionate energy found balance in the living room hearth. XLR8's speed became a current running through the structure rather than an overwhelming force. "The reintegration is progressing well," Asmath observed. "Your consciousness is establishing natural hierarchy and balance." Ben felt the change as it happened, a growing sense of wholeness replacing the fragmentation. The alien aspects remained present but properly contained, enriching rather than overwhelming his human identity. "Is this what the Omnitrix was always supposed to be?" Ben wondered aloud. "Not just physical transformation but a connection to other species? Understanding them from the inside?" "In a sense," Asmath replied. "Though the degree of integration you're experiencing goes far beyond the original design. The time limitation existed precisely to prevent this level of consciousness blending." Ben nodded, understanding now why the safeguards had been so important. "So what happens when I go back? Will I still be able to transform?" "That depends on your choice," Asmath said. "The third phase of treatment can re-establish the traditional barriers, returning the Omnitrix to its standard functionality with proper separation between your human consciousness and alien DNA." "But?" Ben sensed the unspoken alternative. "But given the degree of integration that has already occurred, another option exists. A new equilibrium that maintains certain enhanced connections while preventing further degradation." Ben considered this as he continued reinforcing his mental landscape. The house now stood solid and whole, with the alien aspects properly integrated throughout its structure. The surrounding terrain had organized itself into harmonious regions that complemented rather than threatened the core. "I'd retain some alien traits even in human form," he realized. "Enhanced senses, reflexes, maybe even abilities. Limited versions, yes," Asmath confirmed. In exchange for accepting this permanent alteration, the Omnitrix could be recalibrated to work with your new neurological state rather than fighting to maintain complete separation. Ben found himself at a window, looking out at the transformed landscape of his consciousness. The choice before him wasn't simple: return to strict separation between human and alien, or accept permanent change in exchange for potentially greater connection with his transformations. "I need time to think," he said. "Time is something we have precious little of," Asmath warned. "The longer your consciousness remains in this malleable state, the harder it will be to implement either solution." Before Ben could respond, a disturbance rippled through the mental landscape. The sky darkened, and a familiar but distorted energy signature appeared on the horizon, red instead of green, but unmistakably similar to the Omnitrix's power. "What is that?" Ben demanded, watching as the disturbance grew larger. Asmatha's voice held genuine alarm. "Impossible. Another transformation signature is interfering with the treatment." "But that would require," the mental landscape shuddered violently. Outside Ben's reconstructed house, the terrain began shifting again, responding to the approaching energy. In the physical world, alarms blared throughout Azmatha's laboratory. "Ben, we must accelerate the process," Azmath urged. "Something is attacking the treatment platform's containment field." "What's happening?" Ben asked, feeling his carefully reconstructed mental space beginning to destabilize. The answer came not from Azmath but from a new voice, one chillingly familiar yet warped with hatred. "Happening? Evolution, Tennyson. True evolution." The mental landscape tore open like paper, and through the rift stepped a figure Ben knew all too well, Albedo, his former enemy and Azmatha's disgraced apprentice. But this wasn't the Albedo he remembered. This version glowed with red energy, his form shifting between human and alien aspects even within the mental space. "Albedo," Ben growled. "How are you here?" "This is my mind." "Your mind?" Albedo laughed, the sound echoing with multiple alien voices simultaneously. "Your small, limited human mind?" "I think not. This is the space between consciousness and DNA, the transformation field itself. And I have mastered it while you still struggle to comprehend it." In the physical world, Ben dimly perceived chaos erupting in Azmatha's laboratory. The containment field around him fluctuated as another energy signature, Albedo's corrupted Omnitrix, interfered with the treatment. "Azmath!" Ben called out. "What's happening?" "Albedo has created his own version of the Omnitrix," Azmatha's voice came through, strained and distant. "He's using Quantumelia technology to link his transformation field with yours during the vulnerable treatment phase. You must eject him from your consciousness before he corrupts the reintegration process." Albedo smiled, his appearance continuously shifting between his human form and various alien aspects, all dominated by red energy instead of green. "Poor Azmath," he said mockingly. "Still thinking in terms of separation and control. I've embraced what you fear, Tennyson. Complete integration. The ultimate evolution." The mental house Ben had so carefully reconstructed trembled as Albedo's presence exerted pressure on the landscape. The alien aspects that Ben had just organized began responding to Albedo's influence, stirring with renewed independence. "Get out of my head," Ben demanded, stepping protectively in front of his core structure. "Your head? Don't you understand yet?" Albedo gestured to the surrounding landscape. "This isn't just your consciousness anymore. It's a shared space, human and alien combined. And I've mastered the alien side far better than you ever could." To demonstrate, Albedo raised his hand. The volcanic region responded immediately, fire erupting toward Ben's house. Ben barely managed to divert the flames, drawing on his own connection to Heatblast's powers. "Stop this!" Ben shouted. "You're going to destroy both our minds." "Destruction? No." Albedo's expression turned eerily serene. "Transformation. The next step in evolution. Humanity is merely a starting point, Tennyson, not the pinnacle you pretend it to be." In the physical world, Ben felt the treatment platform's energy field fluctuating wildly as Albedo's attack continued. Distant shouts and the sound of fighting suggested Gwen and Kevin had returned to defend him, but the battle that mattered most was happening within the shared consciousness space. Albedo advanced on Ben's mental house, drawing power from the alien landscapes. "I'll show you what true mastery of transformation means." His form shifted rapidly, combining multiple alien aspects simultaneously, Heatblast's flames with Diamondhead's crystal arms, Big Chill's wings with forearm strength. Unlike Ben's previous chaotic shifting, Albedo controlled these combinations perfectly, directing them with conscious intent. Ben retreated into his house, his core identity, drawing strength from the human memories it contained. "You've lost yourself, Albedo. There's nothing human left in you." "Human." Albedo spat the word like a curse. "A temporary, limited state I've gladly transcended. As you could too, if you weren't so attached to your pathetic original form." He unleashed a combined attack, elemental forces from multiple alien aspects simultaneously. The house shuddered under the assault, cracks reappearing in its foundation. Ben felt each attack as pain in his actual body. In Asmatha's lab, the containment field sparked dangerously as Ben's physical form began shifting again, responding to the mental battle. Ben. Gwen's distant voice penetrated the mental space. Whatever's happening, fight it. Your body's destabilizing again. Drawing on everything he'd learned about his transformations, Ben focused on the alien aspects he'd just integrated into his core identity. Instead of keeping them separate, he allowed their power to flow through his human consciousness, controlled but not contained. You're right about one thing, Albedo, he said, stepping out to face his opponent directly. It's not about separation. But it's not about losing yourself either. Ben's mental form began to glow with green energy. Unlike Albedo's chaotic combinations, Ben's transformation within the mental space was harmonious, human at the core but drawing consciously on alien aspects as extensions of himself. It's about choice, Ben continued. Choosing who you are despite the DNA, not because of it. He countered Albedo's next attack with precise applications of alien powers, Diamond Head's crystals to block energy blasts, Swampfire's regeneration to heal damage to the mental landscape, Brainstorm's intelligence to anticipate Albedo's strategy. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Albedo's constantly shifting features. Impossible. Your human mind shouldn't be able to direct multiple transformation aspects simultaneously. That's because I'm not trying to be all aliens at once, Ben explained, advancing steadily. I'm being Ben Tennyson, someone who understands these powers from the inside. The mental landscape responded to Ben's newfound balance. The house, his human core, remained intact while extending connections to the alien regions, drawing strength from them without being consumed. No. Albedo snarled, intensifying his assault. Humanity is weakness. The alien DNA is superior in every way. Then why do you still look like me? Ben countered, noticing how Albedo's human form, a white-haired mirror of Ben himself, repeatedly surfaced through his transformations. For someone who claims to have transcended humanity, you sure seem stuck on a human appearance. The observation struck deeper than Ben expected. Albedo's transformations faltered momentarily, his expression conflicted. A temporary limitation, Albedo insisted, though less convincingly. The human form is merely a convenient baseline. Or maybe, Ben suggested, pressing his advantage, you can't fully let go of it because deep down, you know consciousness needs an anchor. Even Asmath designed the Omnitrix to maintain the user's core identity during transformation. Albedo's attacks became increasingly erratic as Ben's words undermined his conviction. The red energy surrounding him fluctuated, revealing glimpses of fear beneath his arrogance. You're wrong. Albedo shouted, but doubt had crept into his voice. The transformations are evolution, not tools. Becoming alien, not merely using alien powers. In the physical world, Ben sensed the tide of battle turning. Albedo's attack on the containment field was weakening as his concentration split between the external and mental conflicts. Asmath, Ben called out, maintaining his stance against Albedo. I've made my decision about the treatment. I'm listening, Asmatha's voice replied, clearer now as the interference diminished. The third option, Ben said firmly. Not full separation, not complete integration. Balance. My human core with conscious access to alien aspects. Are you certain? The changes will be permanent. I'm sure, Ben confirmed. It's who I am now. Not just human, not just alien powers. Both, in balance. Albedo realized what Ben was doing and launched a desperate attack. No. You can't reject the full potential. The limitations are illusions. Ben stood his ground, the mental house behind him glowing with strength and purpose. The only limitation is thinking you have to choose one or the other, Albedo. I choose both, human and alien in harmony. The treatment platform responded to Ben's decision. The energy field shifted from white-blue to a rich emerald green, encompassing both the mental landscape and Ben's physical form in Azmatha's laboratory. Albedo screamed in frustration as his connection to Ben's consciousness began to sever. "You're making a mistake. The power could be unlimited." "That's exactly the problem," Ben replied calmly. "Some things shouldn't be unlimited. Sometimes limits define us, give us purpose." With a final surge of energy, Ben pushed Albedo from his mental space. The landscape sealed itself, reorganizing according to Ben's chosen configuration: human core at the center, alien aspects integrated throughout in balanced proportion. In the physical world, Ben's eyes snapped open. The containment field stabilized around him, pulsing with healthy green energy. Beyond it, he saw Gwen and Kevin battling a partially transformed Albedo, whose red Omnitrix sparked and malfunctioned. "It's over, Albedo," Azmath declared, directing Galvan security forces to surround his former apprentice. "Your attempt to corrupt Ben's treatment has failed." Albedo snarled, his form shifting uncontrollably between human and alien aspects, but unlike Ben's previous condition, Albedo's transformations appeared painful and uncoordinated. "Failed? I showed him the truth." Albedo's voice distorted as his transformations accelerated. "The unlimited potential of transformation. And I rejected it," Ben said, sitting up on the treatment platform as the containment field dissipated. "Because some power isn't worth the cost." Albedo stared at Ben with hatred and incomprehension. "You chose weakness. Limitation. Humanity." "I chose balance," Ben corrected, standing steadily. He felt different, his body humming with energy that wasn't quite human but no longer chaotically alien either. "Something you might want to consider before your transformations tear you apart." As if to emphasize his point, Albedo's body convulsed violently, red energy crackling around him. Unlike Ben's treated condition, Albedo had embraced complete integration without stabilization, and now that integration was accelerating beyond his control. "Help him," Ben urged Azmath. "He'll destroy himself at this rate." Azmath studied his former apprentice with a mixture of disappointment and concern. "We will try. Though his condition may be too far advanced for conventional treatment." He signaled to his medical team, who approached Albedo cautiously with restraint technology. Gwen rushed to Ben's side. "Are you okay? You look different." Ben examined his hands. They appeared human at first glance, but a subtle shimmer of green energy occasionally rippled beneath the skin, a visible manifestation of the alien DNA now permanently integrated with his human biology. "I'm good," he assured her, surprised to find it wasn't a lie. "Better than good, actually. Clear. Balanced." Kevin joined them, eyeing Ben suspiciously. "You sure? No more random transformations or alien personality takeovers?" "Not random, no," Ben replied with a slight smile. "But not completely gone either. It's hard to explain." Azmath approached after ensuring Albedo was securely contained. "Ben has chosen a unique treatment path. Rather than attempting to completely reverse the integration, we've established a controlled equilibrium between his human consciousness and the alien DNA." "Meaning?" Gwen prompted. "Meaning I'm still me," Ben explained, "but with some permanent changes. Enhanced senses, accelerated healing, access to limited alien abilities even without transformation." "And the Omnitrix?" Kevin asked, nodding toward the watch on Ben's wrist, which now glowed with steady green light rather than the erratic pulsing of before. "Recalibrated to work with his new neurological state," Azmath answered. "The time limitation remains in place, 10 minutes per transformation, but the transitions will be smoother, and the alien consciousness is properly filtered through his stabilized human core." Ben activated the Omnitrix experimentally. The holographic display appeared as usual, but with subtle differences. Each alien silhouette seemed clearer, more defined, as if his enhanced connection allowed better understanding of each form. "So you're part alien now?" Kevin summarized bluntly. "Permanently." "I guess I am," Ben acknowledged. But still Ben Tennyson at the core. Just expanded. Gwen studied him with mage sight, perceiving the energy patterns now woven through his being. Your aura is different, human but with harmonized alien aspects. It's actually beautiful. Azimuth nodded with rare approval. A unique solution for a unique circumstance. I would not have recommended this path for most beings, but your mind demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Thanks, I think, Ben replied. So what happens now? With Albedo, the Forever Knights, everything. Albedo will remain in Galvan custody, Azimuth said firmly. His condition requires specialized containment and potential treatment, though whether he can be fully restored remains uncertain. And the Knights still have Contumelia technology, Gwen reminded them. They're not going to stop just because their initial plan failed. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, feeling its familiar weight on his wrist, now an extension of himself in a deeper way than ever before. Then we'll be ready for them. Together. 1 week later, Ben stood atop Bellwood's water tower, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. With his enhanced vision, a permanent gift from his alien integration, he could see colors most humans never perceived, subtle gradients and energies that made the world richer, more vibrant. After returning from Galvan Prime, readjusting to daily life had been interesting. School seemed simultaneously simpler, thanks to Brainstorm's intellectual enhancements, and more challenging, as Big Chill's protective instincts registered every minor social conflict as a potential threat. His parents had noticed subtle changes in his behavior and appearance but accepted the simplified explanation that the Omnitrix malfunction had left some permanent but manageable effects. Only Gwen and Kevin truly understood the extent of his transformation. Not just physical changes, but a fundamental shift in how he perceived himself and the universe around him. Thought I'd find you up here, Gwen's voice interrupted his reflection. She created a mana platform to lift herself to the water tower's edge, settling beside him. Just thinking, Ben replied. Processing everything. How's that going? She asked, studying his face. The physical changes were subtle, slightly altered eye color that occasionally shifted with his mood, faint patterns beneath his skin visible only in certain light, but the difference in his presence was unmistakable. Better each day, he said honestly. The alien aspects are settling into their proper places. Not gone, but not overwhelming either. And the Omnitrix? How's the time limit treating you? There was gentle teasing in her voice, remembering his frustration with the restriction. Ben smiled, tapping the watch. Turns out 10 minutes is plenty when you're focused on what matters. His expression turned more serious. I understood something during the treatment, something I couldn't see before. What's that? The time limit was never really about the Omnitrix's power constraints. It was about making sure the user remembered to be human. To come back to themselves regularly. Gwen nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. Azimuth is pretty smart that way. Smarter than I gave him credit for, Ben agreed. The Forever King was right about one thing, the transformations were changing me. Not just when I was alien, but gradually over time. The difference is, now I'm changing consciously, with purpose, instead of drifting away from myself without realizing it. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the final rays of sunlight disappear below the horizon. In the distance, sirens wailed, a bank robbery in progress, according to Ben's enhanced hearing. Duty calls? Gwen asked, noticing his attention shift. Ben stood, activating the Omnitrix. Want to join? Kevin's already on his way, I can hear his car engine from here. Wouldn't miss it, she replied, creating a mana platform ready for travel. Ben cycled through the alien options, selecting Jetray with practiced ease. As he pressed down the core and transformation energy washed over him, the experience felt different than before, smoother, more integrated, his human consciousness remaining firmly in control while accessing the amphibian's abilities and instincts. 10 minutes would start counting down immediately, but that no longer bothered him. The limitation wasn't a restriction but a reminder, a way to maintain balance between his human core and alien potential. Jetray launched into the evening sky, Gwen following on her mana platform. Below, Kevin's car rounded a corner, heading toward the same destination. Team Tennyson, together again, facing whatever came next. Ben soared through the air, feeling the perfect harmony of human purpose and alien ability. The Forever Knights were still out there. Threats would always emerge. But now he understood something fundamental about the power he wielded, something he'd been missing during his obsession with unlimited transformation. True mastery wasn't about removing limitations. It was about finding balance within them. About choosing who you were despite your powers, not because of them. As Jetray banked toward the distant sirens, Ben Tennyson, human and alien, limited and extraordinary, embraced his true identity. Not defined by the watch on his wrist or the DNA it contained, but by the choices he made with the power he'd been given. And those choices, he now understood, would always be what made him a hero. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.